Good evening. I'd like to call the meeting of the Village of Campton Hills to order, please. November 19th, 2024 at 6:30. Roll call, please.
Trustee Boatner?
Here.
Trustee Burson?
Here.
Trustee McElvey?
Here.
Trustee Millette? Absent. Trustee Muncy?
Here.
Trustee Williams?
Here.
President Wonicky?
Present. Okay. Please rise for the pledge. And Tom Williams, will you lead us in the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Okay. Okay, we're going to do swearing in this morning for a new police officer. We're proud to have Michael Oberth here.
If I can just say a couple things about Mike real fast. So he took part in the recent lateral hiring process that was done through the Fire and Police Commission. He ranked #1 in the process. 20 years of law enforcement experience, including many different roles, detective, sergeant. He's a great addition to the department. I'm confident that his experience will be an asset to us, and I know it'll be great for the community because he's got a good personality. So happy to have him part of the department.
Raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Michael Oberth, do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Illinois and the ordinances of the Village of Campton Hills, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the office of Campton Hills Police according to the best of my ability. And that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the office of Campton Hills Police according to the best of my ability. Congratulations. We'll get you. I thought I was seeing things. Okay, now you're up next. Okay. Mhm. Yeah, we'll let everybody clear up. Well, we'll have you first. Yeah. Okay, next we will have our Campton Hills Village Attorney, Carmen Forte, just say a few words.
Hi, good evening. Next on the agenda is public comment. The chair has just asked me to make a few reminders for our crowd this evening. Public comment is governed by the Village Code of Ordinances with regard to people being able to provide comments this evening. If you have a sign-up sheet, or there is a sign-up sheet by the door there, if you could complete one and provide it to the village clerk before speaking so that we can have your name and address for the minutes. All individuals seeking to speak will have 3 minutes to speak. I think the village clerk has a timer this evening and will, let you know when you have about a minute left. We'd ask you to please avoid remarks which are clearly repetitious to the remarks of other persons that have already spoken. The chair can take reasonable steps to limit those clearly repetitious remarks. And we please ask you to refrain from addressing the public body in a manner that's threatening to any specific person, whether or not a member of the public body. So in addition to spoken public comments tonight, the either the Board of Trustees, staff, or other village officials have received some written comments via email, I believe. They've all been provided in written format to the board members prior to tonight's meeting, assuming they came in, within the last hour or so. At the discretion of the chair, she's asking that they're not read into the record tonight, but they will be made part of the minutes for tonight's meeting and will be attached to the minutes. There's been some question regarding the application of the village's zoning ordinance and its proposed format, and as it currently exists to regulations of a homeowners association or a property owners association. Obviously, the village's zoning ordinance is applicable to all properties within the village, but if an HOA or a POA has additional rules that are more strict than the village's zoning ordinance or the village code, those would apply to the particular properties that it controls. So the village's zoning ordinance, let me strike that, an HOA's rules can't be less restrictive, but they can certainly be more restrictive with regard to the uses of a property, what can happen on certain properties, setbacks, types of accessory structures, things like that. In addition, there's been a lot of questions regarding open space and its designation on the proposed zoning map. At the last meeting, I believe, it was introduced an appendix or proposed appendix to the zoning ordinance of an open space ownership map that will delineate private versus public open space, meaning how it's owned. This would be proposed to be an appendix to the zoning ordinance. I believe it's going to be mentioned in the zoning ordinance that this appendix exists and that it delineates who owns the property. However, and whether or not it's stated in the zoning ordinance as well, the ownership of that particular open space, whether it be a governmental entity or a private entity, they have the right to determine who is allowed to access that open space. So the zoning ordinance, either in its current format or as it's proposed, does not provide any authority for any third party other than the owner to access that open space unless that owner is giving the authority to that third party. I don't think there was anything else I had, but okay, we can move on to public comment.
Yeah. Thank you, Carmen. We'll move on to public comment. And Tracy, our clerk, will proceed.
Ralph Boron.
Yep, working. Good evening, everybody. It's a different venue, but tonight feels a lot like April 25th, 2022, when the Zoning Commission at the time held a public meeting at the church on 38. There were a lot of people at the church that day, and many people voiced their concerns about losing or limiting their animals, more restrictions, and basically losing the semi-rural part and feel of Campton Hills. Fast forward about 1 year from then, spring 2023, and a new president and 3 new trustees were elected. It is my opinion that the majority of voters opposed the previous administration's zoning views and elected you guys to listen to them and come up with a plan more suitable to Campton Hills. Fast forward another year and a half, and it's today we're here with recommendations from a new zoning commission, a group of dedicated and capable people who did exactly what they were asked to do: listen, assess, learn, and make new recommendations to the board. And it seems to me that we're back to April 2022 to debate chicken counts, amounts of horse poop, and who can have goats and sheep and pigs, etc. And I know there was the commission before that, took several years, worked for several years as well on the zoning ordinance. So it's probably time to move forward. I mean, I don't mind being here, but I like to take my family out for dinner rather than Village Hall. You know, I'd rather go to Lupita's or OTP for the night. So my family and I, we have a small homestead here, not in an HOA. We have a small homestead with a few animals, and many of our neighbors, of our direct neighbors, do. We keep things clean, and our animals don't smell, And they're not loud because they're happy. We keep them happy. And all of you here have been to our home. You've visited before, and I know you can attest to that. And if animals are truly a nuisance, it's my understanding that we have a strong nuisance code. So we, our family, we don't go crazy with the number of animals for their sake of the animals and for ours too. You know, we don't want to burden ourselves with too many animals. So we also respect our neighbors and use common sense. So trust the commission that was put together, and please trust your people. That's it. Thank you.
Charles Griffey?
How's everybody doing tonight? Well, I don't think we fast forwarded, I think we fast reversed. You know, we spent 9 years trying to come up with new zoning, everything else. Spent hours and hours and hours of the public coming down and stating their opinions. The board that we had, and no one can say that they were they were very good because they listened. No one fast-tracked it. They listened to everybody's concerns about the people that didn't have enough chickens to feed their families, so they increased the numbers. They gave them sheep, goats, which I don't think belong in residential, but if that's what the board agreed to, who am I to say they can't do it? But we're talking about not necessarily nuisance, but abusing the ordinances that we have now, which we don't enforce. We haven't enforced anything. We send a officer over to check something out, they're denied access to the property, they leave, and it's a done deal. Now, you put a person on the zoning committee that probably does one of the most violations than anyone in our subdivision. Yes, they do keep it clean. I can't disagree with that. But to sit here and say we don't have very many animals, that's sort of stretching the truth a little bit. These people had pigs on their property, which Mr. Brown told me I can't have no pigs. Said I can't have no cows, but I can have as many horses as I want. I can have as many goats and sheep that I want, and I can have as many chickens and roosters that I want. You know, we're not a farm. We are not a farm. We're residential areas. And the limits, if you have no limits, then you're going to have people like I'm speaking about right now just to continue to abuse it. Now, we gave them enough to feed their families. That's not enough now. We want more. They want to run businesses out of their home, and we are a residential area. So let's get some common sense. Let's look at what we worked on so hard for 9 years and countless meetings at the church to talk about this, make concessions, help people out, and now we just want to throw all that out the window, all that work, all that time, all that money. It just makes no sense. Thank you.
Mike Terrell?
Hi, good evening. Yep, we've been around this table many, many times. But I'm here to talk about one specific item, and that is roosters. Okay? There's been a post-2023 push to add roosters. In its current format, it says there is no limit. If you can have chickens, you can have roosters. What I've provided to you tonight is a condensation of 9 years' worth of work and research. We surveyed all of the counties in metropolitan Chicago. The only one missing here is Cook for obvious reasons. Lake, McHenry, DeKalb, Kane, DuPage, Will, Kendall. DeKalb, you don't get much more rural than DeKalb. Yet in the unincorporated areas, you need 5 acres, with the exception of Lake County at 4.5. You need 5 acres for a rooster. What's before us is there is no limit on roosters. Municipalities below that, Aurora, Batavia, Geneva, St. Charles, Sugar Grove, South Elgin, Elburn, Hampshire, Wayne. Those are, quite a bit of those are rural municipalities. All of them prohibit roosters in residential neighborhoods. The common sense in polling those individuals, the administrators, the mayors, and understand why those limits are in place. Who on this village is going to turn around when your next door neighbor has 4 roosters, who wake you at 4 o'clock in the morning, and the police are called out to address the issue? Now, if there's no limitation, if the quantity of animals are not specified, as was in the 2023, what's the remedy? One neighbor complains on the other. The normal step is to bring that complaint to the village, and it goes through the adjudication process. Consider this. 2 people show up, the complainant and the offender, and they go before the adjudicator. What's the limit on the animals? Well, there are none. Well, then you have no complaint. There will be too many. It'll be an ongoing basis where people are woken 4 o'clock because of roosters. They're farmyard animals. They belong on a farm. I ask you to consider following the wisdom that's gone before you, 5 acres for a rooster. Thank you.
Peggy Sue Seehafer.
Good evening. I'm Peggy Sue Seehafer. I've been a resident since 1985, and the year after, we built a barn and brought our horses here. Following the zoning of Kane County, we have lived here happily. When there was much discussion about the zoning revisions, I was able to contact people from the board and had my input, and I believe it was heard, understood, and respected. After 9 years of great discussions on the 2023 changes, it was voted upon. With that, I decided to help our community by volunteering. My concerns about the 2024 are based on animal safety. In 2000, I co-founded Fox Valley Wildlife Center and became a state licensed rehabber. The welfare of all animals is a priority of mine, and I believe some of the new zoning ordinances are a problem. There are reasons only 3 dogs are allowed in a residency. No numerical limits to the number of chickens, horses, or barnyard animals, in my opinion, is wrong. And having it up to neighbors to complain in order to resolve abuse is pitting neighbor to neighbor, and that is extremely detrimental to our village. I've provided you with examples of some horrific, this year, abuse of animals on properties in this area. I also provided you with my equine veterinarian letter that I'd like you to peruse because he also agrees. Believing we are responsible animal caretakers is an error when you look at a few of the examples of the horrific conditions I've given you. My example of one most recently is someone that I'm aware of with 30 mini horses. The stallion was left for 3 days with a broken leg, no food and water, and all the animals were confiscated. The owner also let some of her dogs loose to fend for themselves. They have also been replaced or got new caregivers. I implore you that the 2023 in regard to animal numbers and care is taken into account. Thank you.
Erica Wiseman.
Hi. Hi, my name is Erica Wiseman. My husband Mike and I live in Campton Hills with our 6 children. When we moved here, we had 3 sweet daughters, and while living here, we were blessed with 3 energetic sons, who were all born right here in Campton Hills. 1 month before we moved to Cortland, or 1 month before we moved to, so we moved here from Cortland. 1 month before we moved to Cortland, while I was pregnant with our second child, I became hearing impaired in a matter of a few minutes, and my life was suddenly very different. We found that having a dog gave me peace of mind that enabled me to be able to hear a knock or doorbell by the way of the dog barking, as well as a sense of protection that comes with having a dog. When we moved to Cortland, it was a new subdivision and no HOA was established yet. Once the HOA was established, we were denied the request to install a fence on our stamp-size lot in order to contain our dog. That was especially upsetting because our dog did not pay any attention to the electric fence. So I then had to either anchor the dog outside or chase him. Neither were practical for me or the dog, certainly not with 3 young children in tow. After living in Cortland for a bit, we realized it was not the place for us. Too many restrictions, not enough freedom. We sold our home in the stifling HOA subdivision and moved into a rental in Campton Hills. While in the rental house, we spent many months looking for a home and felt very strongly that we wanted our home to be in Campton Hills. Our goals were, number 1, not to have an HOA. 2, to have more room for the kids to play and roam, to grow our own food, raise chickens and bees, and to have more of a community atmosphere with like-minded people. Campton Hills checked all those boxes and more. Please do not change that. Most of our family is here tonight with many other residents to ask you consider what the residents moved to a non-HOA subdivision for. More freedoms, not less. If more restrictive rules are enacted, you will be dividing the people rather than encouraging the close sense of community. Thank you.
Sue Inland.
Thank you. Thank you for the time. One of my concerns and checking with other people is that when you decide, when you make your final renovations or of your zoning, how are you going to disseminate that information to the public? I know there's 1,000 ways to do it, and everybody, half the people don't get newspapers anymore, and everybody's on devices and things, of course, but still, there seems to be, this is not an issue that I think trustees, granted, this many trustees even, should be the ultimate decision makers of. Since we're having an election, a referendum in March or April for the new trustees, it wouldn't cost any more money, would it? A few extra lines on a ballot to let the entire village vote. I think you would get more of a response from people because they're going to be very interested in who's going to be trustees, and hopefully that would. I know it won't get 100%. Nothing gets 100%. But I think it would be a way to check the pulse of the population and see how they feel about new zoning. I don't think it's something that you can disseminate enough information in various ways. And of course, some of the responsibility for that is the public's. It's our duty to keep abreast of things. But we're not just a small little community that we used to be. So I hope you take it, once you get there, that you take a different way to disseminate the information and get more of a true feel for what the general population feels about what you're doing. Thank you.
Darlene Bach?
This isn't the first subject I came to talk about. I have two things, but I agree. I do not want a rooster in my next door neighbor's house. That's all I have to say on that. The other one is at the last board meeting, Trustee Burson brought massage therapy businesses in residential dwellings. The issue of permitting or not permitting massage establishments with Campton Hills was well-researched and considered over the 9 years leading to the 2023 zoning code. Excuse me. I have some packets I want to give out in a minute. During that time while preparing for the zoning code, by unanimous vote, massage establishments were not included. Campton Hills chose not to deal with the unsavory problems that plagued communities such as Elburn and St. Charles. In your packets are examples of these. Overwhelmingly, the consensus was that it was not appropriate or wanted in our community. This time around, I'm not even sure, if allowed, who'd monitor such establishments, as it was mentioned on page 13 of the November 4 zoning summary package under, and I quote, maximum for categories of animals, the statement for the 2024 draft changes, quote, staff has a reluctance to enforce the maximum. And that was the counting of animals would be difficult. In many instances, permission to access the property would be required. If accessing the property to count animals on the exterior is difficult, I ask what difficulties would law enforcement have to access interior of a private resident to investigate a questionable massage practice. Since 2017, Trustee Burson Since 2017, Trustee Burson has operated a massage establishment in her residence, which as well houses an art gallery. Both are in violation of the Campton Hills zoning code. Provided are documents supporting these statements. Those are the ones I'm passing around. I'd also like to bring to your attention, besides massage, she offers services that also violate the zoning restrictions which fall under the definition of medical dental office, page 74 of the code. It says healing arts and holistic therapies, etc., are not allowed. By the way, these services are widely available through Delnor Sherman if needed in the village. In conclusion, I have a couple of questions. Who here is going to pursue these zoning violations? And does serving in a public trust position grant an individual special privilege not afforded to the general public? This is blatantly unethical, and I ask that Ms. Burson recuse herself from voting on these matters and that board members aren't elected to enrich themselves. Thank you.
Neil Anderson?
Hi, I'm Neil Anderson. I live on Brown Road, lifelong resident of Campton. Our family's been here since the late 1800s. In regarding to our zoning ordinance, after lots of discussion at the board level and lots of input from residents, the board decided to establish a task force to remedy the situation. The task force spent hours upon hours working on a solution that would work for all interested parties. The volunteers helped the village with this task at no compensation. All these hours were volunteer, and because they care. I think it would be foolish not to listen to their recommendations.
Holly Boron?
Hey, well, we're back doing the same thing again. All right. This weekend, Trustee Millette asked me to attempt to make some basic logical chicken number calculations using a handful of 1 to 1.5 acre lots. I spent over 3 hours creating different scenarios and concluded that there is no way to do this without being arbitrary. I'll explain. If you gave me a real plat with dimensions, what structures exist, drainage and utility easement data, setback requirements, floodplain and stormwater data for the property, specifics about the septic field size and location and well locations, then it would be easy. It wouldn't take anyone long at all. Every lot is unique, every resident's needs and desires are unique, and we can't give a one-size-fits-all number for some cases without being haphazard or random in other cases. Lot shapes play a huge part in all of this. We have wide rectangles, long rectangles, front pies, back pies. Some lots even have 5 sides. It only seems fair and consistent that if we're back to counting 6-pound chickens or 8-pound rabbits again, will we be counting 1,000-pound horses, 50-pound goats, or 12-pound ducks too? But one of my bigger concerns is something that hasn't even been discussed at the board level yet: inconsistencies in the setbacks. Let me give a simple example scenario. I have a lot of tools and tractors, so I build a barn. The barn is allowed to be 10 feet from the property line. I use my barn and live there for a few years. I sell my house. The new owners, they don't need to store the tools or tractors and want to use their barn for some chickens. Whoops, they can't. The barn would now need to be 15 feet from the property line, not 10. Sorry, give me 15 seconds added here. Do they have to apply for a variance because they might store something other than tools in their already existing structure? Okay, so maybe the village gives them the variance. They sell their house a few years later. The new owner doesn't really want chickens, but they want a goose and a goat. Whoop, sorry again. They can't put them in the barn because now the barn would need to be 25 feet from the lot line, not 10. Here we go with another variance. In my opinion, all structures should just be created equal. The same inconsistency also applies to the fencing setbacks. I can put my fence on the property line to yard my dogs, but if I put a goat in that same yard, does the fence now have to be moved in 5 feet? Will I need to get a variance for this too? How will I mow this 5-foot no man's land if my property is landlocked? How many fences already exist in the village that would now be considered non-conforming? To end simply, do we really want to create future non-conformings based on what multiple owners in the future may decide to store in their structures or use their yards for? Thank you.
Kristen Scheringhausen?
I've lived in Campton Hills for 33 years. Before that, we were on a farm in DuPage County. We come from a farm family. We've raised everything from cattle, pigs, horses, sheep, rabbits, and chickens. Those are all considered farm animals, not pets. In our neighborhood, we do not have an HOA, and the people that live there, I can say, I counted today, 25% do not comply with any of the current restrictions. We've had too many chickens, we've had roosters, we had previously owned a second property in Maple Park. The people we bought it from kept roosters. The main purpose people would have more than one rooster is cockfights. And that's what they were running every weekend, with drawing a large crowd for that. So I would not allow any roosters. If these animals, these are farm animals, not pets. And one thing that these animals all have in common is they eat off the ground. I don't care how you contain the food in, their containers, whatever, rodent-proof. Once the animals are fed, the feed's on the ground, and that draws rodents, not just your cute little mice. They do draw rats. Once you have rats, you don't get rid of rats. So is this something, maybe keep the farm animals on farms and let families live in the residential areas?
Sarah Elliott?
Good evening. Thank you for your time. My name is Sarah Elliott. I am here with my 3 daughters in the back. I was born and raised in Campton Hills. My parents moved in 1976 and still live on Briarwood Drive. I, as an adult, moved back to the area and decided this is the environment that I wanted to raise my family in. I grew up gardening. I grew up knowing where food came from, and I think that's an incredibly important aspect of life that our children in schools today do not get taught where food comes from. It's really important for me my kids know where it comes from, and yours also. We started keeping chickens in 2015 and happened to get a rooster or 2 in the flock, not through choice. But the day I saw my rooster take on a red-tailed hawk that was trying to take one of my hens out of my backyard, I decided that rooster could stay. We have kept a rooster to protect our flock, and we also keep our food in barrels and locked up tight. And yes, we have cute little mice. No, we don't have rats. I respect all the work that has gone into the zoning. I think it's really important. I super appreciate the civic engagement that's happened around this in our community. I respect especially the current proposed zoning. We all attended, many of us attended recently, provided comments and feedback, and that was given to you trustees. That was a huge body of work as well, and it was, it should not be taken lightly, all the comments that have gone into this to build this already. The people really care about their community, and to disregard the volume of comments that have already been made is disrespectful. So please, keep our village as it's been, not, we're keeping up with the times, but at the same time, we have to know where we come from and maintain our rural environment. Thank you.
Christine Brower?
Hi there. My name is Christine Brower, and I have the big white barn that's just west of Wasco. My family came here in 1842. I grew up on a farm with cows and pigs and everything you could imagine. My father was a really good farmer, as my grandfather, and he would go around and buy cattle, and he knew a man that wasn't far from here that named every single one of his cows. He loved them to pieces, but the man never let them out of the stanchion. The man did not feed them enough. So my father tried to explain to him, there are other ways. You need to let the cows out, you need to feed them corn, whatever. And I appreciate everybody around here who's wanting to have mini farms. But I am very concerned with your zoning, that you apply enough rules and regulations that I don't know if people know if they have chickens and they have to be kept in 120 square foot area, that you can't just let them eat and poop and eat and poop and eat and poop. You have to clean it really well, or the animals are going to get sick. And so for the welfare of animals, I really think there has to be a way to control and check people to see what they're doing. I also just grew up with some roosters around, and they can be very noisy and very loud, and I think it's wonderful to have chickens. I'm glad you can have all the chickens you want, but I do think roosters might be a consideration if it's in a residential area. I was on the zoning board and plan commission for 10 years, so I worked hard to get some of the rules and regulations. We worked on dark sky. We've done a lot of positive things. So I ask you to use common sense with this and respect the people that want to have animals, but also have a way that you can guide them so that there isn't abuse and those kinds of things. Thank you for your time.
Becky Curtis?
Oops. All right, I am just a lowly chicken and goat owner, and I'm not so sure why there's such a concern with the animals keeping on the properties. I'm not trying to run a business. I'm not trying to have excessive numbers of animals. My chickens and my goats are our pets. My daughter takes my goats on walks. She puts a little halter on the goat and walks the goat after dinner. We've taken family walks with our goats. It's lovely. Our chickens have names. These are our pets. Yes, they're farm animals or barnyard animals, but they're our pets. We chose to move out of a neighborhood that had an HOA so that we could have this type of environment for our family. From my understanding, the HOA rules and regulations will limit that. So for the folks that don't want to have that lifestyle, there is that opportunity. You live in a neighborhood with an HOA that controls what people can and can't have. For the folks like myself who wants to take a nightly goat walk with my family, I can live in an area without an HOA. So I'm not really sure, it's like a fear of these animals, and it's almost like people that don't know what the reality is, and I'm not sure why that's such a concern. I think that the newer regulations or suggestions that they've come up with accommodate a lot of people's wants. They want to live in that kind of life. That's all. Thanks.
Nora Enzel?
Hello. Nora Enzel, like you said. I've been the owner of a small horse property in Campton Hills since 2018. I'm also a part owner of a large horse farm in Ocala, Florida. Lifelong competitive equestrian. I've got an associate's degree in equine management, bachelor's in equine training instruction. I've also been an Illinois licensed attorney since 2013. I have attended meetings on the proposed zoning code since 2019 approximately. I know many of you guys have been working on it long before then, and I really respect the efforts. The 2023 zoning code was a disappointment to many of us in the animal community, which is why we organized and voted out the president and village board members when they were up for re-election. This new administration created a committee to rewrite that code. That committee held meetings, accepted public comment, and ultimately recommended a code to this board that is in large part really excellent, in my opinion. I thank the members of that committee for their work. I think this is the code a lot of us wanted back in 2023. Now, though, when that code was sent to this board for approval, it appears to be going backwards. What's the point of appointing a committee to hear resident feedback and draft a code if it's just going to be torn apart at the board level by members pushing their own personal opinions and agendas? The village board is elected to represent the residents. The residents have been clear. At every meeting where animals are on the agenda, residents show up in droves, this one included. Nearly all want freedom, minimal restrictions, and the ability to do what they want with their property. They love our semi-rural community and want to preserve its uniqueness. It's irrelevant to me what any other community or county does as far as their animal zoning. I trust our residents to responsibly own whatever animals they want. What must be considered is that this zoning code is not the only way to regulate animal welfare or to protect neighbors and the community. We already have environmental regulations regarding groundwater pollution and runoff, nuisance laws regarding animal noise and waste and unsightly conditions, animal welfare laws regarding humane treatment and housing of animals, permit requirements and regulations for fences and buildings. These things all already exist and are working. We do not have an issue with animal overpopulation in Campton Hills, to my knowledge. We don't have complaints of properties being overrun with any animals, and I believe there's never been a complaint about someone having too many animals here, to my knowledge. There's no need to impose blanket restrictions on over 10,000 residents because of a personal fear that at some point in the future, someone may have too many animals on a Campton Hills property. Additionally, and briefly, a prohibition on electric fences would be inappropriate for horse owners. Electric fencing, very commonly used in horse management, is an affordable way to protect wood and vinyl fence, as well as highly flexible way to construct divider fences on horse properties to allow for rotational grazing and responsible pasture management. Electric fences use low amps and a pulsating current. They're not a danger to animals or people. Please don't make the same mistakes as the previous administration, and please adopt the least restrictive animal regulations that you can based on the draft provided to the committee. Thank you.
Chanel Jackson?
Thank you for allowing me to speak. I'm here to actually represent the Westwoods of St. Charles Community Association. I'm here to express my strong opposition to the Village of Campton Hills proposed 2024 zoning, ordinance, particularly Article 9, the keeping of animals. The issue I have is the changes outlined in the ordinance with especially the removal of numerical limits. Now, listen, I don't have a problem with animals, with farms. I love farms and animals and all of that. I don't have an issue with any of that. What I have an issue with, and what our residents have an issue with, is the removal of numerical limits. Now, I live in front of a property that is a non-residential area, residential area. It's chickens, roosters, whatever. And they run all over the yard. They run into my yard. We now have an enormous rodent population, pest infestation, because some owners take care of their property while others don't. And we know that's a reality. There are many responsible people, and I respect them. But when you're talking about residential areas, residents are not farms. So these are the things I'm concerned about. I'm just going to get right to it. The health and safety concerns. The proposed ordinance raises several critical public health and safety concerns and could have long-term implications for our residents. According to the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, backyard poultry livestock are known carriers of disease, okay? Influenza, avian flu, I can go on. These illnesses can spread humans through direct contact with animals, contaminated surfaces, even airborne pathogens from manure and other leading causes worldwide pandemics. This is when people are not responsible. And when you remove the numerical limits, what you're doing is you're asking for these sort of things to occur. Groundwater contamination. Not everybody places their chicken coops where they should be, right? I know some that even put their chicken coop on top of the Magellan pipeline, right? All right, children in vulnerable populations. Pest chemicals, swarm management, and predator attraction. We have predators running through my yard, everybody else's yard, to grab a chicken or a rooster and run down the street with them. Now we have a population of predators that run up underneath our deck, around other areas in our neighborhood, right? So these are HOA surrounded by non-HOA properties who are being affected by this. So we're talking about improperly managed animal feed and waste. Residents' lack of bee colony swarm management. We actually have colonies of bees on this property. There's no swarm management. What if a kid goes over there and accidentally gets up against the colony, and is what? Goes to the hospital and almost dies? Additionally, the presence of poultry and livestock attracts predators. I've said that. Odor and air quality issues, noise pollution, community and environmental
Chanel, your 3
Impact.
minutes are up, so just finish
Okay,
up. We'll
so
give
I'm
you-
really just saying the solution to this is really limiting quality, limiting the numerical, actually imposing the numerical limits, which can help us all. And one issue is also, again, roosters. Okay? Thank you.
Amanda Fogy?
Good evening. Amanda Fogy, residing at 4 North 394 Foxville Drive, Campton Hills. I've been here numerous times and had some public speaking over the last several months. I've been coming to these meetings for a number of years, as multiple people in this room this evening. I contemplated speaking this evening because, especially after our village attorney explained not to repeat what others have already touched upon, but I feel that I need to speak upon some of the things that I feel very strongly about with living here. Again, we're backpedaling. Very disappointing last week when I saw all the different things that the 2024 proposal for zoning was starting to be taken out of. I don't have a mini farm, but as this lady spoke, I have a horse, I have a goat, I have chickens, I have a koi pond, I have bees. I live on 2.5 acres. I like to know where my food comes from. I like to take a stroll on my horse in the property. Guess what? My goat has to come along because she's addicted to my horse. My whole neighborhood loves my animals. They come over to see my animals. I live on a pie shape. You're going to tell me I can't have a loafing shed on the side of my pie-shaped property? Okay, my OGs, my girls that are old, my chickens that don't produce eggs anymore, I don't kill them, I keep them. They have names, I love them. The chickens that I get every year, because I have roosters, because I have a flock, and the reason why I have roosters, let me just share with you real quick. In my role, a rooster is a protector. A rooster does not just scout for food, but he keeps an eye out for my girls. He keeps an eye out for predators, alerting my flock to danger, pushing my hens to safety, and aggressively defending them against other attackers from the air and the ground. And I've seen this firsthand, as other people have seen in this room. Taking this responsibility very seriously, a rooster may give its life in defense of the flock. It's a natural way to safeguard your flock, and then you have your flock that's protected. It's less sound than a dog coming out of a house barking at someone walking on the street. Growing up, we kept roosters on our homestead at all times. We learned that this was a very important tip from other chicken keepers. The importance of keeping 2 roosters at one time is so if one rooster somehow loses his battle while protecting my girls and his flock, he simply dies from old age, I have that younger rooster that's learned from him, and he can take over his flock. It would take a very long time to reintroduce a random rooster to my flock, and to get him established in the pecking order. My hens become roosters and will kick his butt out of the way. So anyway, self-sustainable fertilized eggs. Again, I don't plan the fertilized eggs that I get. Some are men or males, roosters, some are females. I don't keep my 10 roosters to cockfight. I keep them so I can feed my family. In 5 to 6 months when they are meat eating, my husband and I butcher them, and then we keep them in our freezer for the winter.
Amanda, your time is up, so just finish up, please.
So as far as how many roosters you can have, I get it for the noise complaint, but just to let you know, every single one of my neighbors around me, when we butcher our roosters, are like, what happened to your roosters? Why aren't they crowing anymore? I have one gentleman that I thought it was actually his 3-year-old grandson that was crowing at my roosters. No, it was a 55-year-old man because he enjoys my roosters. There's multiple things I can talk about, setbacks and everything. I've hit my time, but please just listen to the committee who has already provided you the information that they took the time to gather from everybody sitting in this room and not here represented tonight.
Thank you. Okay, that's the end of our public comment session. So thank you all for speaking, and all the comments were really good comments. We're going to move on to our consent agenda. Anything to remove from our consent agenda? Okay. Hearing none.
Move to
Motion
approve.
Who'd that come from? I'm
Move to
sorry.
approve.
Oh, Mike, okay. Second, do I have a second?
Second.
Second from trustee Muncy. All in favor, say aye, or roll call, excuse me. Roll call.
Trustee Millet?
Aye.
Trustee Muncy?
Aye.
Trustee Boatner?
Aye.
Trustee Burson?
Aye.
Trustee McElvey?
Aye.
Trustee Williams?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. Moving on to staff reports, we have Public Works Committee update. Scott Marquardt.
Good evening. I'll make this report fairly brief. One thing I do want to mention is you may notice this is the first time this is being included in staff reports. There were discussion at recent Public Works Committee meetings about how to better try to get the work that they do forwarded onto the board. So discussion was to put it on village board agenda with quick updates on it. You've got the information in front of you. I'm not going to read through it. I just want to touch on a couple of specific items of importance and answer any questions if there are. Item C, the 2025 roadway project, as you know, that is all progressing forward for rebuilding 4 major collector roadways utilizing well over $2 million worth of grant funding from Kane County. That is on schedule for a probably midsummer construction start here in the village. Next page, Route 47 and McDonald Road, there's been significant discussion about that in recent meetings. The Highway District did recently put in the rumble strips on McDonald Road, and we are also working to get a meeting set up with IDOT to discuss potential changes that would be involved regarding a potential closure of the west side. We do not have a date set for that yet, but that's in progress. Item G, the 5-year capital improvement plan. Draft 5-year plan was presented at the Public Works Committee meeting and discussed. The information is all in the Public Works Committee packet for anyone's viewing. I just want to note that it's aggressive, as you know, as it was with the first 5-year plan. There is, as you've heard before, a significant funding shortfall to be able to complete all these projects, even taking into account in that plan, approximately $3 million worth of grant funding coming in. There's still a significant funding shortfall that the board has to look at how to address and how to continue maintaining your roadways. Private roadway conversion, that is actually later on the village board agenda, so I won't touch on that. And stormwater reimbursement fund policy. First application that came in this past year was discussed briefly at the committee, was tabled until they could evaluate the application further, and are looking to look into that and provide direction at their January Public Works Committee meeting. So with that, just a brief summary of what went on, and thank you for the opportunity to be able to present this.
Thank you, Scott. Any questions or comments about Scott's presentation? Okay, hearing none. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have IT server update, and it's Kim Muir, who's the committee chair.
Evening all. I'll be brief. So one of the main mandates of our ad hoc committee was to actually decide whether or not we needed to replace the server or not. Coming down, the direction where the committee wants to go, but we're just not ready to go there yet, is to do it some other ways, but taking a look at the immediate need that we want to go with a server. That server OS will be viable until 2031, which is more than, it's the life of the hardware that we're going to get. Basically looking at about 11,400, it's like 312 or something, and that does include a UPS, which is needed because those batteries are really old down there. So we want to make sure we protect that hardware. Other than that, I mean, some of the direction is we do want to do some synchronization to get us into a hybrid environment. There's some other things, but the main thing was the server. I mean, I don't know if you want me to touch on any of the other ones. I just would rather, yeah, okay. Some of the other things were, we also have a recommendation that we consider a high availability firewall with a secondary internet pipe in case the primary goes down. And if for some reason that goes down, with that redundant HA firewall, that services for the police department continue on, which is the main safety thing, okay? We definitely want to make sure that we are servicing the police department appropriately here. And that cost was similar to the replacement and update that we did, okay? It does require another switch, but it's negligible. It's still like around $1,000 or so, just a little over $1,000. We'd want a little higher pipe than our technology provider quoted us originally, but again, that secondary connection to the internet would be LTE, so it'd be over the air. We wouldn't be worried about cut lines and things. Okay. There's still a power issue. If we actually had a tornado come through and wipe a bunch of stuff out, we're still dealing with other issues at that point. So I think the only other thing was that we have one of our members, Member Pesky, actually has a cabinet, a full cabinet that's lockable that he wants to donate. So as long as you guys approve, the village president approves it, and is okay with that, he's more than willing to donate that, and we want to secure that equipment. Okay. Any questions?
Yeah. Any questions for Ken? Comments? Okay, thank you, Ken. Okay, moving along, we have Police Department. We have Chief James Levand.
Thank you. I know there's a lot of comments, so I'll make this one short for you guys. I know you're still waiting for your packets. Hopefully next day or two that'll be finalized, because it was a switchover, go into the new LMS system with Kane County. So we're still trying to figure out all the graphs and everything, but it's almost there, so I'll have that to you shortly. But the call for service for October, 285 calls for service, 15 accidents, 137 citations, and 2 arrests. Just a reminder, the Holidays in the Hills event will be Saturday, December 7th from 3 to 6 p.m. It's here at the Village Hall / Police Department. Refreshments, activities for the kids, hayride, choir, Santa Claus and his elves, coda, and then of course the tree lighting ceremony. Big thank you to the Community Relations Committee, because they work on this all year long, so they do a lot of the work behind the scenes. Sunday, December 15th, beginning at 1 p.m., the police department will do our yearly Christmas parade that we always do. So it's just a reminder. Gets bigger each year. Local agencies, first responders, of course Santa Claus, the entire crew from the North Pole, they take part. We hand out candy and toys through the event. So I want to I don't have great artistic ability, so I did a map for our route for the parade, and someone, Scott Marquette back there, must have saw my map online and didn't like the quality of it. So he actually made a new map for me, so we've updated that. I didn't ask him to do it. He did it, kindness of Scott, so I appreciate it. His map is much better than the one that I made, so thank you, Scott, for doing that. Sort of good news, I spoke to Mike from KDOT this afternoon. So they're finalizing the paperwork. The generator that we've all been discussing for a very long time right now, the one that was brand new that was going to be used for the Long Meadow Corridor Parkway, King County and KDOT have decided, they're finalizing the paperwork, that they would sell that generator to the Village of Campton Hills for approximately $15,000. That is almost a $70,000 generator that is brand new. It's been sitting underground. It hasn't been used, but for the most part, it's brand new. So I stress to the board, when this comes through in the next day or two, to jump on this as fast as you can. And I want to thank, obviously, Kane County, Mike and Tom Rickert from KDOT, because they all played a big role in this. but it's a huge cost savings. This generator will be able to power the entire building. And we know we have some issues with power going out, so at least that was some good news today, but that's all I have unless you have questions.
Good. Any questions for Chief? Tom?
And just, if we
Uh-huh.
could,
Hang in
we'll
there.
be proposing the full power for the building with this answer, because that's what we're waiting on, whether we do a small one on the roof to
Mhm.
just do the police communications. I think I have consensus to go with the full, and we will spend the rest of the American Rescue dollars on this project. And I'll work with a couple of the trustees that have volunteered to get a document before you at the next meeting.
Yeah, and I'd like to publicly thank Tom Rickard. He was just always available and in contact with me regarding the generator. So thank you to Tom. But speaking of Tom, go ahead, Tom.
When you say there's something we need to do, I mean, can we do it right now? I'd just like to get that generator, sounds like, so whatever we got to do to get it.
I think if there's a consensus, I will make good on the purchase and ask you to ratify that decision at the next meeting on
Beautiful.
December 3rd on the purchase price of approximately 15 grand. I trust that if I take that action, you won't fire me at the next meeting for taking that action, so you'll ratify it.
Okay, anybody else? Any comments or questions? Okay, finally, finance report, Timothy McPhillips, our treasurer.
Good evening. I can confirm the chief is not a good map maker. I've seen him. Many of you on the board should have received these 6 months financial statements thus far, so we're halfway through the fiscal year. I'll just give some top-level points on it for the general public. With half of the year in, the general fund revenues are coming in at 58.1% of the budgeted revenue, so that's a favorable variance. And the total general fund expenditures are 49%, which is also a favorable variance. The two main departments in the general fund are general administrative and police department. The general fund is coming in favorably at 42.3% compared to 50%. The police department is coming in slightly over budget at 58%, which is attributable to personnel utilization and the complete recognition of the dispatch services for the entire year. The remaining three funds, the motor fuel tax fund, the road and bridge fund, and the capital fund, are all coming in as expected. Any variances are reasonably explainable. The cash balance at this point is $5.3 million. The audit field work is wrapping up. There's one call I still need to make to the auditors, but otherwise, we anticipate presenting to the Finance Committee in December and then presenting to the entire board in January. After that, the start of the fiscal year 26 budget process will commence. Any questions?
Any questions? Go ahead. Janet?
On the MFT fund revenues and the road and bridge fund revenues, it seems like one interpretation of those is that MFT is running slightly under budget. Do we expect to make up that even admittedly small amount of lost ground in the second half?
Yeah, yes, the motor fuel tax funds can be somewhat lumpy.
Right.
I can give you an extrapolation of what we expect the remainder of the year to look like. The Illinois Municipal League gives a nice projection, usually mid-year. I haven't created that projection out for the remainder of the year, but I can make sure that's included in the next report.
Great, thanks. And with road and bridge fund revenue being favorable to budget at 85.6% is great, except if we're expecting no more revenue for the rest of the year in road and bridge fund, does that also imply that we're 14% and change down on road and bridge fund overall for the year?
No, we do have 2 more months of road and bridge funds we would expect. I can create a schedule for that too.
I thought maybe we were saying that we'd kind of gotten what we were going to get.
No, we get 8 payments for the year. We're only 6
Fantastic,
months in.
thank you.
Okay. Any
Go
other
ahead,
questions?
Jim. Yep, one more question here. Jim?
Yeah, not a question, more of a statement. I don't want to
become the voice crying in the wilderness, but when you look at legal services under village board and legislative, halfway mark, we're 96% spent of
Yes.
budget. I have brought this up many times before, and I guess I would challenge us, and now it's not anything against our current legal firm. That's not my issue. My issue is certainly any trustee on this board making any phone calls to this, to our law partner here, or even coming in when he's here doing something else and taking his time where that meter is running. We just cannot do it. This is crazy. You know, all my time looking at these budgets, to say that we're 96 spent of our entire year's budget at the halfway mark, we got to do something. Now, last year, there was some understandable things that took place, which I understand, okay? But I don't understand this, and this, I think, is we got to be very, very careful. Because I know when we budgeted it, we thought we did more than enough. But I can tell you, as I've been saying, each time I see those warrants at 17,000, 15,000, whatever the case may be, it's just too high. And we owe the citizens of our village to be good with their, you know, with our funds and to be fiscally sound. And I think being this far along is not a good thing. My only comment.
Thank you, Jim. Any other comments, questions? Okay, go ahead.
Just a question, I
Trustee
guess.
Muncy?
Thank you. I'd like to see a plan or projection for how we maintain a balanced budget with, you know, the possibility of us spending twice as much on legal if this continues in a year. Where do we find that? Where we project that we can absorb that? So if that could be presented in the next meeting or two, you know, how we handle this situation, I'd appreciate that.
Okay. All right, thank you, Timothy.
Okay, thank you. Have a good evening.
Have a safe drive home. Okay, moving along, we're on 6 action items. Motion to remove from the table and approve the minutes of October 15, 2024 Village Board Meeting minutes.
So moved.
Moved by Trustee Burson, second by Trustee Williams. Any discussion, any questions? Okay, roll call.
Trustee Burson?
Aye.
Trustee Williams?
Aye.
Trustee Boatner?
Aye.
Trustee McAlvey?
Aye.
Trustee Millet?
Aye.
Trustee Muncy?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Motion passes. On to discussion items. Number 7, a private roadway to public roadway conversion request discussion and direction. And
I can just give an overview on
You
that.
can give an
Yeah,
overview.
basically, there's been a area of the village that's unincorporated that wishes to have their roads, or, I mean, they're in the Campton Township. They're covered by the Campton Township Highway Department, but they want to take a road and put it into, Scott, basically, we're recommending negative on this request, right, Scott?
I want to make one little correction, it's a little bit of misunderstanding. The neighborhood is incorporated into the
Yes.
village.
Yes.
Okay, but the roads themselves, when the neighborhood was set up, were set up as private roadways. They're not plowed by the highway district, they're not maintained by the village. A request was received to, you know, to see if the village would consider taking them over maintenance, jurisdiction and such. This was discussed at the Public Works Committee, and I apologize, I forgot to recognize a couple Public Works Committee members that are here this evening, Kim Muir, Andro Lorario, and John Boveri. And Ray Weber from the Highway District is here as well. They first contacted Ray, who we had some discussion, forwarded to me. It's been discussed back and forth at Public Works, and their consensus, in fact unanimous, there's also a letter in your packet, is it's not something that the village should consider. Recognizing that the Public Works Committee is an advisory committee and doesn't actually establish policy for the village, had a discussion that made sense to bring it forward to this board.
And
forum.
we have no idea if those private roads were built to any kind of engineering standard for us to take them. It would be a cost burden to the village writ large, and we already have a problem with financing and paying for the roads that we've already have in our incorporated list. So we're strongly recommending against this action.
Trustee Burson?
My understanding from the information provided is that the residents in this area are paying an additional fee, apparently to the HOA, is that correct?
Yes.
That was perhaps intended to cover this maintenance?
Very possible. It does show up on their documents that they do pay in it. The people in that subdivision on private roads pay a higher fee to the HOA than residents that are not on private road frontage.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions or discussion? All right, thank you, Scott. And yeah, there is a letter from John, Chairman Baveri, in our packets, if you want to later look at the letter.
President Winnicky, I guess I do have a question. if
Yeah,
you don't
go
mind.
ahead.
I know we can't give legal advice to this or anything, but is there any discussion or anything about, I mean, I understand they have an issue and they have a funding problem, we have a funding problem, but we know what our options are. Do they know what their options are concerning whether it's an SSA or something else that they could do? I don't know if we can provide information, but we'd like to help the residents somehow, but we can't take over the roads.
Yeah, it's a good question for Scott, because you're at the meetings. Is there anything any proposals or?
Well, I think that gets into how much does the village want to invest in looking through their documents, seeing what procedures are, providing guidance to them. I mean, it has functioned the way it is currently ever since inception. And it was one resident who was a director of their board who had contacted us. We've not had contact from any other residents in the neighborhood.
Okay, well, thank you, Scott.
Sure.
All right, moving on to 7B, Resolution 24-05, to enter into a boundary agreement with the Village of Burlington, and we'll have our attorney Carmen speak on this.
Sure. I've recently been working, or for some time, been working with village attorney for the Village of Burlington on the proposed boundary agreement. The prior village attorney, before he retired, did prepare a draft form of the agreement, which I've reviewed. Reviewed it with their new attorney now, and we're pretty close on proposed language. We're now looking at the issue of a land resource management plan, which is essentially a guide for both municipalities to determine how they want to address future uses of the land between the two municipalities. So either north or south or east or west of the boundary line that's set equidistant between the two municipalities. So we have a few options of how we could address that. We could have a separate plan, or we could include language inside of the boundary agreement that gives a general overview of what both municipalities are looking for, which generally is to maintain the current status of the properties that are there now. It's mostly rural properties, non-residential or light residential areas. So hopefully should have an update and be able to approve this by the end of the year.
Okay, thank you, Carmen. Anybody have questions for Carmen regarding the boundary agreement? Okay, we'll move on to the moment everybody's been waiting for, the discussion item C, review draft zoning ordinance. And I'll hand it over to James Brown.
Yeah, and just
Yeah.
James is going to give us an overview from last Thursday's meeting to what we had consensus on. He has drafted language. He will do a check of the room to see if we have, as staff, encapsulated the things you did come to consensus on the document. And then we're going to try to go down the list of items that are still open. And we'll kind of have a threshold question of, are there 4 votes of the body to even make a modification to what the zoning commission has proposed? And if the chair doesn't see 4, we're asking for the cooperation of the board to move to the next issue and not rehash and discuss the item infinitum. But that is my recommendation. You can follow it or not. And with that, James Brown, please.
Sure. So I did, okay. So I sent out a staff memo, I had several attachments, and I did 2 things. I went and changed the draft ordinance once again, so what's up online should incorporate the language that, as I understood it, that you wanted changed. And then I extracted those changes, sections or paragraphs, and put it in the staff report. So that's what I'm going to walk through now and ensure that I got it correctly. If there's something else that comes up regarding these. This, I hope, is the low-hanging fruit, and we get through pretty quick. The first, there was a question on the open space map. We said there would be an appendix, and I suggested at the time in the part where it gives the purposes of the district that we add language. So we come down here to subparagraph 4, put private and public in there. You can see the changes in red, and underline is what's been added. I'll increase the size of this maybe. Yeah, there we go. And then we put, I put a sentence at the end, or a couple sentences, talking about that being designated as part of the Open Space Preservation District does not indicate public or private ownership and does not confer public access. I'm not going to read the whole statement. So I think I captured that, and it makes a reference to Appendix 1. Appendix 1, I think that version went up today. That's the, should be the very last page of the ordinance. I got a digital copy today. There was a correction I wanted HR Green to make, and they did that. And there's no discussion here. We can move on.
Okay.
Right? So, all right, I'm not seeing anything. Second item was on, there was discussion on utilities. There seemed to be maybe some discrepancy or confusion, so I modified the language. I had mentioned at the previous meeting it was stuff underground. Not exactly true, but it's just equipment and devices, and then made it clear that this exemption for right-of-way and public utilities does not apply to buildings or structures, you know, up the above ground. So then you would just turn to the table of permitted uses and see that I think it's a special use in all zones. Accessory dwelling units, there was concurrence to remove paragraph C on detached ADUs. So that has been removed here with the red stricken. And also ADUs above garages, obviously, because they would be detached. This is pertaining to detached garages. And then I wasn't really sure how to do this. There was some comment on we have to ensure that it never changes. And I don't think that's really necessary because you always have to conform with the ordinance. So, but I just put in the phrase, once established, the accessory unit cannot be used, rented, or sold as a separate dwelling unit. So I think that makes it clear. All right? Is that correct? Right? Yeah. I think that's sufficient to, if anyone changed, they had their grandmother living in there and then, you know, she moved out or passed away, they could not do it because they'd be changing the use of it. All right? So I think that's clear. A couple revisions to Table 8. Trustee Muncy emailed me. He asked about pole barns and garages. And to my surprise, detached garages and pole barns, although they were discussed at length during the zoning commission, they were not in this table. And I went back, and our current ordinance does not have them listed. It doesn't list detached garages. I should have caught this. Someone else should have caught it. So I added detached garages. They would be permitted in the rear and side yard, but not permitted in a front yard or corner side yard. And then the same with pole barns. I haven't really worked on definitions for those, but I think I could come up with language for the next meeting. You could see that, and we can modify it on the fly.
If I could, President Winnikin.
Sure.
You know, there were several items that I had said that I wanted to discuss, but we had not discussed them yet. This is one of those items. While I appreciate Mr. Brown's addition here or you know, efforts to do that, I think we still need to keep on a list of things to be discussed. I'd appreciate that.
Well, as long as we're at this right now, this item, is this address the concerns you expressed on this item?
Not on pole barns, no.
Okay. Could we?
I don't want to, I mean, if you're okay with stopping here and discussing it, we can do that.
We might as well, because we're at that section.
I have a couple of your items later on. They're coming up.
Granted, yes. I
mean, we can circle back, or whatever.
again, it's up to how you
Whatever's
guys
the
want to run
most
the meeting.
efficient. I mean, if you could tell us what those issues are, we may be able to get consensus on it right now.
Sure. The pole barn, in the barn section on page 50, barn stalls and other farm buildings, does not include pole barns on residential properties. I take exception to that because many of the barns we have on our properties are pole barns. And if you look up what pole barn is defined as, it's a post-beam construction technique. The large Morton Building style barn that was just approved on the corner of 64 and Burlington is technically a pole barn. Just because there are not wooden poles in the ground does not mean it does not meet the definition. I would like to, and then also earlier or later, page 52, I think it is, where we talk about how important barns are and that we should keep them and they're not non-conforming and that sort of thing. I think any reference to pole barns should be pulled out. Whatever construction technique, whether it's stick and timber or it's pole barn or whatever, I don't think we should be accepting it. And now here we have pole barns separate, where they would only be allowed in the, where's the rear and but not in the corner side. But barns are allowed in the other. I mean, a pole barn's a barn. I would be in favor of removing that, treating a barn as a barn, as long as whatever definition we have for barn, is that includes pole barns and includes timber frame or regular stick construction. Why accept it? Because it's gonna pigeonhole a lot of our barns that are out there now into something that could be non-conforming and may be in a spot where we wouldn't allow. It's a barn. I would treat it the same.
So at that point, we would ask, is there 4 people that concur with that revision?
One, two,
That's 3?
Yes.
three,
There's 4.
and four.
All
Okay.
right, so we now have that we'd like to discuss it and create it. Is there anybody that has Jim, do you understand that definition change? Is there any problem with adding?
So you want to have pole barns allowed
As
in
barns.
any yard? Let's start with the table.
Looking at the table, we've
Yeah,
got it
with the
restricted
table,
in the front yard.
barns are currently allowed rear, side, corner side. And then there's a parentheses, this is on page 50. There's a parentheses that
barns,
says
yeah.
does not include pole barns in residential. I'm suggesting we just remove that, strike that out. A barn's a barn.
And then, so you would just strike those 4 words. And then in
All right.
use table, make the incorporating change.
Okay.
Okay, everybody's in agreement with that?
All right?
Okay,
All right, Jim, if you would continue.
Ian's gonna continue, yeah.
So, home-based businesses?
Jim, we have a question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I apologize. I have a related question about garages. There are also, I believe, quite a number of properties in the village where there is a garage that is also essentially in the side corner yard, right? So there's a detached garage, come up the driveway, there may or may not be an attached garage in front of you, or there is just the house in front of you, and then there's a garage off to the side. This was not considered unacceptable at one time, and we have quite a number of residences that have this form of construction. So I'm, in the same spirit, I question whether we should broaden the area in which a detached garage
So, and
is
allow it in the
permitted.
corner side yard?
Correct.
Well, it's kind of grandfathered in.
Is there 4
Mhm.
hands for garages in the corner side yard?
Yeah, yeah.
I'd say you have
Okay,
consensus
yeah.
to make that change.
You have
Okay.
the consensus.
All right.
Okay,
If
moving
you now
on.
continue, Jim?
Mhm.
Yep.
He's- Yeah,
One more?
Yeah, while we're making comments as we go through, can we back up one? Is this gonna be what we're gonna make comments as we go through? Because I do have one at accessory dwelling units.
And
Are we-
ADUs?
In ADUs, yeah.
well,
Is
On
Jim
detached?
started out with
Attached.
ADUs.
Attached.
Mhm.
attached, yes.
Back to the attached section?
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah, right here. So something that caught my attention on this is the line that says, ADU and existing primary dwelling unit shall share a party wall at least 20 feet in length. And the ICC building code has a definition of a party wall as any wall located on a lot line between adjacent buildings which is used or adapted for joint service between the two buildings shall be constructed as a firewall in accordance with 706, and party walls shall be constructed without openings and shall create separate buildings. So the idea of a party wall is that you are really creating two separate addresses or changing a single-family residence to a multi-family residence. And I don't think that's the intention of this language. I think that a lot of our ADUs are going to be an addition that are connected without strictly separate entrances.
I would, to try to address that, if we just take party wall and just say wall and not get into the definition and then
Yeah, we
avoid
totally
that.
can do that.
If we did
I did
that,
have
would
a-
that suffice?
Yeah, I'll just say, you know, I've found it typical that the building code has one set of definitions that is very specific. It serves a purpose for building construction, and the zoning code will have the same term or phrase and define it differently.
Okay,
So
we
we
have a-
could
I mean,
just
it's
strike
whatever, you
party
just wanna
wall,
strike
or
party
say
wall out,
wall?
that's fine.
And we have a
Simple.
consensus?
Perfect.
Good?
Yeah, I mean, that's
Perfect, perfect.
All right, that's
All right, moving on.
Home-based businesses. I think two changes here. We reached a consensus on the number of employees that could be working at a home-based business, non-family members, that is. It said 2, it was reduced to 1. And then there was a brief discussion on item 3, no toxic, explosive, flammable, et cetera, material shall be used or stored on site, and we added a phrase, beyond types and quantities typical for residential use. It's a suggestion from, I think, trustee Muncy.
Okay,
All right?
all right. Moving on, that's great.
I understood that we wanted specifically to add, this is the list of permitted home businesses. I'll note that this list is not intended to be all-inclusive, and to add massage therapy and mental health practitioners.
Any discussion? No? Okay. All right,
To barnyard animals, we get into this, we'll get into this here right now. So there was a relatively simple suggestion, and that was to remove one sentence in paragraph A concerning water and feed.
And I think the reason for that was
Yeah.
that the county and the health department already regulates
Yeah.
heavily if there is an abuse of the animal. We don't need to talk about how, in the zoning code, somebody waters or feeds their animals. So that was why that was, we captured, I think, what the discussion
yeah.
was on Thursday. So
And then
move-
I think we can kind of stop right there. Well, we got two, I want to dive into the animals, because that's what we need to reach some consensus on tonight, hopefully, and then the storage and parking. So I'll maybe come back to that. And then I had additionally from, I think this is from trustee Muncy, self-storage facility and driveways. And then we, one thing that I don't have up here on a slide was the accessory structures, changing the size, so.
President Winnicky?
yes, sir.
I've emailed this 3 times now. So barns, yes. Gravel driveways, self-storage facility, and dark sky protection. Those are the additional items we've not discussed yet that I'd like to make sure we do.
Okay. Any preference on how we?
I think we should just take them one after
Go into the
another
animals
off
now?
that
Okay.
list.
All right, yeah. So for the animals, I
We
want to.
will get them under other.
The ones I mentioned were going to be really quick, but go ahead. If you want to jump into
We
this
want
one.
to finish, those aren't as controversial. We'll get those at the end because they're going to be easy, I think.
I'll be tired and, so, the way we discussed this afternoon, and the way that we want to go through this is start with a very broad question and then kind of drill down. And if there's consensus on the broad question, then there's no need to to go on. So you'll understand maybe once I get into it. And so the first question, we're going to go into the barnyard or the animal stuff.
Mike, do you have a question?
Is there anyone here
Okay.
who desires to keep the draft regulations, Article 9, the keeping of animals, exactly like it is?
Which was
That's
proposed
Article
by
9.
the
It covers
zoning.
everything, all of the
Yeah, the zoning
provisions on
commission.
chickens, horses, goats, where they can be, the fact that there's really no limits on them, all of that. Just keep it as it was forwarded from the zoning commission.
From the zoning commission.
Do we
I
have?
think we ought to be clear to the public, as the commission has said at the public hearing and other hearings, there is not a total free-for-all of total unrestricted limits on the animals. The size of the lot, what else you have on your lot, and where your many things are existing will determine the numbers. There is not an absolute free day in the 2024 ordinance. You back into it based on your own individual lot, how it's configured and what you have on it, where you're, because we don't have city sewer, you have
Your
a septic field. That could impact what you could or couldn't do on your lot.
Yeah, that's
So
true.
there is, it's freedom of the homeowner and flexibility, but it's not an unlimited quantity of animals. That's how it's arrived at, so there's not this misperception that anything goes.
Yeah.
It's still, it's not a numerical limit, but it does back into a number based on your individual lot.
Yeah, includes some wetlands as well.
Exactly.
So the question was, is there anyone who desires to maintain Article 9, the keeping of animals, as it was forwarded, exactly as it was forwarded from
The zoning commission. All right, consensus? Okay,
We have
one,
two. Okay. So then the next question is, how many people want to revise or alter in any way, insert, delete, change language on anything relating to any type of animal? Start off, Bob.
Mike, go
So
ahead.
any, essentially, delete, add, we're going to drill down, delete, add, revise on any type of animal.
Okay, trustee Millet, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam President. Usually I try to wait till the end, so I'm going to do something a little bit different. I'm going to start. So I was asked recently by Holly, I think actually, about the notes the notes I had when I went to the zoning commission on the last night. And I said, I don't talk from notes, I usually talk from off the cuff, but I made notes. Because sometimes it's good to make notes, you don't forget things. I got an award a couple years back, and I wrote notes to myself, said, thank your wife, thank your daughter, thank your mom. And I didn't, it was hard to, when I was at my leadership retreat last week at Starved Rock, which is where I made these notes, it was hard to hear everything, but I thought I was getting through. So I'd like to preface a couple things to go back and then please continue the discussion. We're at a point where, you know, everybody likes to do whatever they want with their property until their neighbor does something they don't like their neighbor doing. I mean, that's generally the issue I've had through my whole public service is even when it's the right thing, even when it's okay, if it's bugging you, you want to let other people know why it's bugging you. Comment we had from the big zoning commission meeting at Bell Graham, paraphrasing, you can't tell me what I can do on my own property. Well, the reality is, yes, we can, to a limit. And the county was doing that before we became a village too. The key is we together decide through this process, annoying as it can be and as laborious as it can be, to get what we want, or at least what we're equally willing to compromise to. The freedom to do whatever we want, I think there are places on this sphere we still can. You get 100 acres, say, like in Livingston County, or probably should check the zoning there. But you want 100 acres, you want to drive your 74 Mustang, put leaded fuel added into it, have a tall boy cracked open, no seatbelts, whatever, right? You can. You absolutely can. You can't endanger another human being against their will. And if you run into a tree, it's on you. You're on your own property. But we're not that. We're not 100-acre lots, right? We're, in some cases, 5, some cases 10, some cases 6/10 of an acre. So last year we had this process. As has been mentioned, some folks felt it was a nice, open, good process. We heard comments to that earlier, and some felt it was not. We heard comments to that earlier as well. Unfortunately, we've also had what I call a 2-to-1 legal opinion that it was valid. And for the clerk's edification, this is a joke, right? Counselor, what's 2 + 2? Depends on who you're asking. One of the cleanest lawyer jokes I have, but it's the truth. The legal interpretations of things can be a gamut. So we said, I don't believe that invalidated anything that was done. There was a lot of heavy lifting, a lot of great work that was done, but it was clear that enough folks in town were uncomfortable with that. So I think I used the term a couple times, belts and suspenders. So we think we may have done it legally, but let's just make sure, because now we have conflicting legal opinions, that maybe we didn't do everything exactly right, so let's open the process up again, which led to the Zoning Commission. The vast majority of the 2023 work is in what we're looking at now. When you look at Zoning Officer Brown's changes, what didn't change, what did change, the bulk of it's there. Right, so that work was done. We're looking at it. We obviously have a few contentious issues that are remaining, and we're talking about them now: truck plates, accessory structures, lot coverage, I shouldn't write in the dark, animals. And to the folks that said, if you phrase this properly, the zoning commission's work wasn't synchroset. In fact, when we did that work, the zoning commission repeatedly said to the effect, if the board doesn't like it, they can change it. The process is we can't just change it by a simple majority. So they sent this to us knowing there were things that they couldn't sort out. So it's, if you have the opinion that we're disrespecting the zoning commission, I don't believe we are. None of the folks that I've talked to that served on the commission with me, I believe, feel that. But if we say that they didn't do it for the right intentions or anything, I don't think I'm hearing that from anybody, so I don't think we're disrespecting them. The 2023 draft, the original draft we had, that is by far the most liberal zoning ordinance in anywhere in Chicagoland, by far, in the 7-county region. There is no incorporated town that contemplated the things that we were contemplating. All our neighboring suburbs that I'm aware of, for example, what we're about to talk about, have a 5-chicken limit. Some of them require licenses. There's other mechanisms. Some allow horses, some don't. Some allow goats, some don't. We were talking about the topic we just passed over, flexibility on ADUs. We were talking about it before other towns were talking about it. And there are other towns, including my employer, that is now have approved, actually separated ADU. So to the topic we're going on to right now. So I sent Zoning Officer Brown a query, did I not? And the query was, what if I were a random person who bought a lot that just happens to look exactly like the lot I own? How many chickens could I have? And of course, the first answer is unlimited. Though that's not really the answer, as Administrator Rooney said, because there's other ways we back into it. So looking out there back into it and considering I have a relatively small house and just one detached garage, I have 1,700 square feet of available accessory space. So I think I can get 170 hens in there. But within practicality, I have to have a coop. I have to have it on 120 square feet. I can shelf them. I can go like chicken farm them and just put them really tight next to one another. I can maybe get 150 in there. But I think practically, we were going on more of the order of probably 80, because Janet and I went back and forth at it, potentially 80. That's a lot. And I don't think, and if I'm wrong, I'm sure I'll hear from it shortly, that we're really talking about that level of animals for lots of folks. So we want to support home-based based businesses, back to nature lifestyles, and I think we are supporting them both in the draft of the 2023 and then this draft now. But I think 170 or 90 or 80 is a lot. That's when you go away from domestic cooperative use to some sort of a business function. So I'm proposing, as we discuss this, I would like to try, and again, this can be revisited at any time, right? We got to remember, this is just what we're going to try for now. I would like to propose a limit of 50, see if we can get consensus on 50, try that as it goes, and then the folks that are in that sphere already are cool. The ones that I think all have in the order of 10 to 12 now, you're cool on that. And then if we can get consensus on that, then I think the true challenge is roosters, because yeah, you're going to need, if you have something, you should have a rooster. Maybe you should have 2 roosters. We have a lot of concerns about noise. We have concerns about other things. You can't have all roosters, because to the point, yeah, you're doing something else if that's all you have, and I think we all realize that. So I don't think that's really what we intended, and I don't think that's what the zoning commission intended when that was mentioned. So, you know, that's, if we want to do an advisory referendum, maybe that's something we can look at doing. But I would propose, if we can talk about maybe having and this wouldn't be a table. I think that's, even though I think there was a lot of good work done on the table. I'm an engineer. I love tables. I understand that we lost the room on that concept. I understand that it itself is, it's got some stigma to it. So I would propose that we put it in the text, and it would be a sample. I mean, it would be, your lot may vary, your mileage may vary, the conformity of your lot, and to the point, and to the conversation I had with Holly about the difficulty in figuring that out. I got a simple lot. My septic field's in my front yard setback, which is off of Town Hall. So that 1,700 feet I told is free and clear. I can get it 30 feet from my neighboring lot line. I mean, it can be done. And knowing that it could be done, that's a lot of birds. And that'd be expensive for me to have a lot of birds too. So I'd like to see if we can get something, at least at a trial balloon basis on 50.
And just as an add-on, not to critique you, but you can't run a business of raising birds for meat or egg sales on a residential lot. It's not a permitted home-based business. You can't have a business. It's got to be private use, irrespective of whatever number you put on the chickens. So I think the question before is 50 on any size lot for chickens. Does it have 4 votes?
How about a consensus?
Well, I mean, you've got 50, and if it fails,
Yeah.
you'll put a different discussion item up for a different number. Is there one person, Mike?
There's 2
Two.
here. 2.
2.
So it fails.
It fails. Is there another number that Mr. Boatner would like to?
Go ahead, Nick.
Yeah, thank you.
Go ahead.
So, I guess my thoughts on this are, with all the feedback and everything we've heard about numbers and chickens and different animals, there are kind of these fears, but there's nobody, I haven't heard anybody show any specific incidents in the village where there is this overwhelming issue of people having overpopulated homes where there's just these flocks of chickens creating a disturbance, where there are, animal welfare issues with horses or barnyard animals. And I feel like what we're doing is we're starting to throw out numbers and regulations for a problem that doesn't actually even exist. I haven't heard what the issue is. I've heard families with kids that are raising chickens and all of these great stories, and then I've seen articles of obscure kind of one-off, hoarders or people that are, just animal cruelty situations, but I'm not seeing some sort of a pandemic of animal cruelty in Campton Hills. The other thing that I saw was in a lot of these different municipalities, they have prohibited. They don't have a number at all. They show that the animals are just, it's a zero. And what that really says to me is that numbers don't work. So these different communities, which are significantly different than Campton Hills, Aurora, Batavia, Geneva, St. Charles, they all have town neighborhoods, blocks, small lots, much different demographics. And when folks have chickens there, it could be a much different issue than it is out here in Campton Hills. So, but the prohibited part shows that, I mean, you either put a zero on it or it's allowed. The numbers don't work. We say 25, we say 30. You know, if someone goes to the Tractor Supply and gets chickens, they want to have chickens, they're not calling the village and saying, how many chickens can I have? I mean, are we going to go around counting chickens? Like, I mean, it's either allowed or not allowed. And I feel like it's also setting a precedent. You know, now, I mean, now we're reaching in and we're telling folks what they can do on their land. I mean, what's the next thing? So now our village has created this, you know, this precedent that, yep, now we're going to start regulating what folks do on their property. And I think that's the whole reason why people live here. You know, they can go somewhere with a lot of rules, but they chose to be in Campton Hills. So my suggestion would be if we have to put any numbers or any limits on anything, it would be the R4 and R3. That would be it, just purely because most of those homes, I think, are going to be in an HOA anyway that's going to end up drilling down and have their own unique rules with animals. Everything else, I would leave as allowed. We've got responsible animal owners. I haven't seen or experienced anybody who's not going to take better care of their animals on their own, and I don't think anybody needs the village's guidance. Nobody needs us to tell them what to do with their chickens, their livestock, what's on their property. So that would be my suggestion, to take a consensus on only doing a limit that I think we should also discuss on R4 and R3, which is really just negotiation, because I think it's reasonable. I mean, a 5,000 square foot lot, a 10,000 square foot lot, 50 chickens, nobody's gonna have 50 chickens. You know, if someone's gonna come home with a half a dozen chickens and, you know, they're gonna take care of them and it'll be a beautiful thing. But that would be my suggestion.
Mike, you were next, yeah.
I love that altruism. That's awesome, dude. The reason we don't have a problem now is because technically we don't allow it now. I mean, the county doesn't allow it either now for for residential zoning, right? We're talking about residential zoning. That's the thing. So yeah, maybe the point we look at a break between RE and R, because okay, yeah, there's a inherent smaller lot, different type of original subdivision built on those, under those zoning districts that we've looked at, and then maybe maybe on a I mean, RE1, yeah, that's huge. RE3, I don't know. I mean, yeah, we could talk about that maybe.
I think Ed was next, and then Tom.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you, President Winnicke. I concur with Trustee Millette. You know, Kane County doesn't allow it right now. We don't allow it in many cases, which may be resulting in why, you know, we don't perceive that it's a problem. We don't know if some residents just don't want to complain against their neighbor or whatever. However, I had said something in the last meeting that I wanted to go back and refresh my memory on, that what I referred to as a horse owners group supported a lot of the 2020, or supported numbers, let's put it that way. And I went back and did that, and Ms. Nora Enzo, who spoke this evening, and who I respect greatly, and has way more horse knowledge than I will ever have, not that I have any, but is very impressive in that regard, sent in a letter January 25th, 2021 to the Planning Commission and Zoning Board that did in fact express her personal opinion that there should be, she removed the maximum number of horses or livestock. However, maybe 2 weeks later, February 13th, this was during COVID, we were having Zoom meetings. This horse owners group had a meeting, and I quote from the post here, consensus was the current draft proposal of 1 acre minimum zoning for horses, half acre for horses workable, but that's not the important part. Now we're talking about chickens. Regarding chickens, much discussion and debate about how to balance the need for chickens to be in groups and to meet residents' needs for eggs, etc., without allowing large flocks of free-range chickens disturbing neighbors on small adjoining lots. The subgroup recommends a 1/4 acre minimum lot size to have chickens, then have up to 32 chickens on lots up to 5 acres. The horse owners group actually submitted a written recommendation on February 11th, 2021, that for chickens, I think is a pretty good idea. 8 hen chickens per 1/4 acre. So the smaller lots you start at 8, which is probably the largest number of any of the communities around us. And then you build that up. Once you get to 1 acre, you have 32 chickens. So 8 hen chickens per 1/4 acre lot area may be raised and kept, not to exceed a maximum total of 32 hens on lots under 5 acres. Now, we could discuss maybe on the REs, maybe it's more than 32, but I like what they came up with. They have a lot more knowledge about this than I do, and I was basically just kind of listening at that point. But they also said roosters are allowed only on lots of 5 acres or more. So that was the consensus and the written recommendation at that point in time. I think it's a good group of people that really know this a lot more than I do. And I would suggest that that's a working number we can consider.
Tom, go ahead.
I kind of kept a tally of what people were saying out in the crowd and also included the people that emailed us. Here's what I've got. No one discussed trucks. We've got 6 people that are very pro-animal, which is great. Nobody really discussed, like, I want to have as many as I want. I didn't hear that. I heard, oh, I have 12 chickens. Oh, I have a goat. I have this. It's not like I want to go crazy. But then again, I got people that are very worried about less. They want to limit. They want to be like, hey, my neighbor, I want something to stop them from going nuts, okay? Now, I don't know about you guys. I live in an HOA. I got people that don't weed whack. I got people that don't do anything. They don't trim a bush. They don't do anything. Don't tell me people do stuff just because they feel like doing stuff nice. That's ridiculous. I live in a neighborhood where people park trucks in their front yard. I had a guy park one for 6 months. We couldn't stop it. The guy wasn't going to do it. He wasn't listening to the HOA. This had nothing to do with the village. But I'm telling you right now, even the rooster thing, okay, we had 8 against, we had 2 for. Really, that's what I got. So what I'm saying is we have a limit on dogs here. Does anybody know that? This thing is a limit on dogs. 3. Why can't I have 12? I like dogs. Can I have 12 dogs? Why are you limiting my life on dogs? You know, I hate to say it, but zoning is numbers. Zoning is numbers. Okay, when a guy comes out and says, okay, I'm going to put my house on this lot, do we measure it? Yes, it's a number. It's a number. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm sick of hearing this counting thing because that's all zoning is counting. And I'm starting to get a little upset about it because I'm almost getting to the point where I'm getting dumber by hearing it. And I'm not knocking anybody with animals. I'm not. I think everybody out there should have the animals they have. I do. I agree with that. What I think, the only thing I disagree with, I guess, I mean, if I had to say it was, yeah, I don't want to count animals. I really don't. I don't think we have the capability of counting them here. But I think for the peace of mind for the people that don't want it, there's an equal amount. And I'm not talking about people in my HOA. I'm talking about people in the Netherlands, the people that are out there in the distance that don't have HOAs. I know why you moved there. I get it. I moved away from a village myself. I wish we could come up, I would agree with your point, and I do agree with you, Mike. I guess we're talking about chickens here, but what if we just come up with a, hey, don't go over this amount of animal units, okay, whatever that might be. I mean, because I'm cool with the chickens. I just think, I want the little old lady sitting there that, you know, her husband died and this is a possibility because I know how people, they do go nuts. I just don't want the lady to feel like the best thing she's got is to come over and go, hey, I got this guy making noise. He's got 50 chickens. He's got 50 dogs. I mean, whatever it might be. We limit things. We limit to measurements. That's all I'm saying. So I think somewhere between this chart that we had from 2023, which gets very specific on animals, and somewhere between a gross amount of people or animals on a property would be a number. I think that kind of satisfies everybody's need. If somebody here wants to go over 50 units of animals on their property on 3/4 an acre, I'm like, there's pills for that. It's cheaper. Go get a pill. I mean, we can get you to a doctor. I mean, come on, people. That's all. I think there's an easy answer here. I think there's a way of coming to, I'm new to the board, but I'm looking at I'm seeing differences of opinion here from a lot of different people. And I'm just trying to come to consensus. And I think that's the way I would like to see it. So if you came up with a proposal where it was animal units, if there's an animal unit number where I could just say, okay, at least when a year from now, I'm at the grocery store and this lady doesn't want to come. She's like, hey, you're the guy. You're the guy that voted to let my neighbor go gonzo. And hey, come on, there are people in this world. I'm sorry, Nick. I mean, I don't know what world you live in. I love you. I do. I like that. I run a business. Okay? I had to fire stupid all the time. I did. That's what I did for a living. I fired stupid. There's a lot of crazy people with crazy ideas. I don't see this fantasy land where people just do the right things. Or we wouldn't have speed limit signs. We wouldn't have stop signs. I mean, these are numbers. These are numbers. I don't get it. I'm sorry, I'm frustrated. I can't believe that, but I just want to get to like some, I think me and Mike are kind of like, let's get to something in the middle here where we limit this. Because I think what this is doing to the neighborhood is even worse, okay? This is not good. This is not good what's happening to the neighborhood, okay? This is, you know, villages, you know, the whole point is we're in this together, number one. Number two, I don't believe that it leads to a lot of infighting. I don't think there's this like anti-animal group. I really don't. I don't think there's an anti-animal group. I don't think people with animals are crazy. I don't. I have no problem with it. It's just we need to come to a consensus that the people with the animals are very happy with the situation they have, and then there's the other end of the spectrum, like we heard from the crowd also, that's just like, please, please, give me something to hang my hat on. That's all it is, so I'll leave it at that.
Tom, I've got to thank you for your comic relief. It's just awesome. It is. Jim is next. He wanted
Yeah,
to
just
have
a,
word.
just a
Yeah.
couple of comments. I'm kind of in the same camp. You know, I hear how, you know, no numbers, and it drives me crazy. And I had this conversation with Administrator Rooney, because you have to be measured. You have to have something black and white, or as I said at the last meeting, you will create the Hatfields against the McCoys. And I don't want neighbor against neighbor. Trustee Muncy just made a comment about some neighbors don't want to do the fight. Maybe they just move because they can't put up with what's next door to them. And I think we're playing Pontius Pilate. I think we're washing our hands of it by saying there's no numbers. And we have to come up with a numerical number, and we have to somehow find that consensus of what that is. And Nick, you know, we used to be under Kane County's rules. They had numbers. And what did, as Trustee Millette said, what was created by the last board, which, by the way, also came to that board unanimous from that planning commission, just as it did with this one, that was also unanimous. We spent a lot of time on these numbers, and it drove us crazy. I think I lost all my hair during the last time we had this discussion. And we ended up with something that was, as Trustee Muncy said earlier, it was the most liberal zoning ordinance around. And now we're taking that needle and we are just flattening it to la-la land. And I don't want to be part of la-la land, and I can't support no numbers. So I'm willing to chop wood, as I said at the last meeting. I think large legislation, such as a zoning ordinance, should be unanimous. And the only way you get to unanimous is by everybody giving. And if one side wants to dig in and say, no, we don't want any numbers, you're not getting my vote. And I think you can get my vote, but we gotta chop wood. And chopping wood means rolling up their sleeves and working at it. So, thank you.
Well, I
Thank you,
think
Jim.
that you had 0 that didn't have consensus. 50 was too many and didn't have consensus. Would you settle on 25 chickens on all lots? Would that be?
Could I reframe this, because I have the
Okay.
list of questions? So, it seems like we want some numbers, right? And I'll remind you, the last question I asked was, did you have locational issues or number issues? So there's two things to consider here. So just keep that locational issue. I put the chart up on here. So right now, the basic question is, do you want a not to exceed number that would be valid just straight across the board? 20 chickens, 50 chickens, 80 chickens, we're not talking about a number. Or, we can ask that, or would you want that number based on some other factor such as lot size? So do you want first of all, do you want a not to exceed number? Is that clear? You want for chickens, we're just talking about chickens right now.
It's not clear. Do we want one not to exceed number for all size lots? Is that what you're asking?
That's the first question, yeah. So like 80 chickens, regardless of where you live, As long as it's in that table up there, and chickens right now are allowed across the board. You can't, whatever the number we decide on, would you want to approach it that way? Or do we want to, I'm just trying to funnel the discussion here. Or do we want to decide on something like a ratio based on the lot size and have the number based on that?
Or
Mike,
that some of the smaller lots may not even be permitted.
No, you have to be
We'll get to that here.
recognized, Janet.
We'll work on maybe altering the table here, but
Yeah.
is that clear?
Mike, do you want to?
Yeah, I mean,
Real
there's a
quick.
natural break between a state and not a state. That's one way to look at it on a, you know.
Size,
Yeah,
Has
you
to
could
go
say,
by lot
you could say
size.
RE is a higher number, you could say RE is 50. And then you could look at the R
That's right.
2, 3, and 4, is it something that is proportional to lot size? Because there's a lot of variance. There is variance in all lot sizes, I get that. But, you know, when you're starting to get up to 2 and 3, you're big.
Okay.
Right? So, I mean, you could probably massage it more on a situational basis, because then maybe it's area, like you were talking about, and some of those don't have septic, so that would eliminate that as a detriment too. So, I mean, sure.
So, do you have a number that you guys could live with on RE being not to exceed 50 and the other lots 25 as an example? Is that a starting point of discussion that you could live with? To take Mike's point.
50 on the REs is fine with me.
Is there, as a starting point, yeah. Is there a consensus to go as high as 50 for the RE lots? Show of hands.
How big is an RE lot, just for clarification? What's the size?
Yeah. The smallest of the REs, yeah. Goes up to 4.
And you're, what's the number again?
What? You'd start at 50. Is that too high? Then you go down to 40. Is 40 got on the RE? Is that a limit that you can live with? We're just
Consensus?
talking about numbers,
Yeah.
Nick. We're not going to
Yeah.
do philosophical. We've
Yeah.
already got to that.
I'd like to hear Nick's comment, please.
What's that?
I'd like to hear Nick's
have a
comment.
comment?
Okay, go ahead.
Nothing philosophical. Thanks, so Mark. So I guess my point was avoiding the counting. You know, we're not going to go out and count chickens. So my question would be, like on an RE1 lot, a 5-acre lot, what is more than what most people would actually have? I mean, if we had 100 chickens allowed on an RE1 lot, we had 75 chickens on an RE2, and we kind of worked our way down at numbers that were exceeded what someone would actually have. I mean, we're going to end up putting ourselves in a point where, again, we're going out and counting chickens. There's a reason that all these examples where they would probably be okay with people having 5 chickens in St. Charles and Batavia, but they don't want to count chickens, so they prohibit them altogether. I mean, that's the number that they give,
That's
King
roosters.
County.
That's roosters.
Right. This is also roosters?
Yeah, it's all roosters.
This is just roosters?
Just roosters.
Okay.
So that's why it's prohibited, because they're roosters.
Got it, got it, got it.
Has nothing to do with chickens.
So
Okay.
but if I may,
Go ahead.
to be clear, we've already decided that as a board, we are not okay with no numbers. Correct?
That's why you're having a
Okay.
discussion to set
Exactly.
the
No,
number.
I know I'm stepping back and stating the obvious, but I mean, any discussion to go backwards and say, why are we putting numbers on this? We've already passed that. Looking at adding numbers per district, we're back to what, you know, Trustee Millet has said, clearly it has had that specter of bad is the 2023, which allowed up to 45 chickens. Apparently, that's not enough. Apparently, some people are saying that's an HOA rule or way too restrictive. I don't know why that's out there in the ether, but, I mean, we thought that was based on things. This is starting to get into pick a number out of the air. I think I would be in favor of 2 dozen and 4 dozen, or, you know, something 25-50 or something like that with a break between residential and residential estate, unless we're gonna get back into the table, which I favored to begin with. So, you know, it's up to you guys on that one.
I can go with 25, 50.
25 across the board? Or?
25, I think he's saying 25 on the smaller lots
the
that are
smaller
not
lots,
REs.
yes.
The REs would be 50.
I agree, yeah,
And 25 for all the R.
okay.
That's,
Do we have
Two hands, is there,
1, 2, consensus?
so it's 25, excuse me, just
Mhm.
repeat it one more time.
it was up to a max of 50 on all the RE lots, and 25 on anything that was R1, 2, and 3.
2, 3, and 4, yeah.
So is there,
Okay, 1, 2, consensus, 3?
there's 4.
You got 4?
I think you have 4. You
4,
got 5.
okay.
So we
Okay.
have 6, Jim. So
Change it to.
So, okay, so the next question is, this table, you're good with chickens, not talking about roosters now, chickens, all the way through R4?
Yes.
Check? Okay,
Yes.
that was easy. All right.
Yes.
Let's stick with the birds. Roosters.
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 this should be just a yes or no. If you, right now, they're not restricted in the 2024. Is there hands to ban roosters? Because currently they're not, ban them on all lots. That's what, the residential lots, not on farms, but
Now, let's go to the way you asked the other question.
I
Is-
agree. Yeah,
is-
with that.
Is there a consensus that we keep the 2024 the way it is, which allows roosters on all lots?
Yeah. That's,
On all lots?
that's what it is
Including-
now.
Right,
Okay.
yeah, you see
On
up
the
there.
Do you
R2,
want to
3, and
change the
4.
roosters essentially then from what 2024?
That's two different questions. Do we want to keep it as it is right now? That's how you asked the previous one. Let's
Yes.
just keep it consistent. Who wants to keep it as is, no restrictions on roosters?
We have 2. So therefore now we have to discuss if you want to ban roosters.
well, I think the question is, do you want to ban them from specific zones? Let's split that
The
up.
R2, 3, and 4.
Yeah,
Which are the
maybe
small
start,
lots.
start with that.
Yeah.
So let me ask, who would want to ban roosters all over the village?
No.
Okay, that's very clear. Who would want to ban roosters based on the zoning district, which I'll throw in my 2 cents, I would prefer rather than lot size, but zoning district, and let's stick with the same break, start with the same break that we had for chickens between the residential estate and residential. Do you want to break that?
We got 2,
Right.
3.
That means roosters on 1.25 acres.
Right, that would be R3.
So on the
So
RE lots, roosters would be allowed, but on the R1s, 2, 3, and 4, they
4.
would not. That's what's being voted. That's the vote.
Keep in mind, our R1 lots are bigger.
We,
No.
the
wait.
public's not part of the discussion, sir. Just,
Yeah,
Just so you know.
well, we do know. I think they should be allowed on the 1, 2, 3, and 4 in a smaller amount. I don't think we should say they're not allowed. I think we should put a number on them.
I'm sorry?
They're the smaller lots, Tom. Yeah. Can we say you can have 6 chickens or rooster? Oh, the roosters, yeah.
President Winnicki,
Yes.
if I may, since we're getting a
Sure.
lot of discussion, I think we need to take an alternate way to look at it. Why don't we start with the largest lot, the RE1, which is 4 acres plus, poll the group, ask if we would allow 1 rooster, or if you want to ask roosters, then we'll figure out the number afterwards. Would you allow roosters on the RE1, and then work your way down until you see you don't have 4 hands?
okay, I think that's the easiest way, to say, yes, a rooster can exist on a 4 acres. Is there? Yep. So is there consensus to let a rooster exist on the RE1, which is 4 acres?
Looks
That's
like it's
unanimous.
Unanimous.
Now
Wow.
go to RE2.
RE2.
That's
2
3
acres.
acres.
2 plus
3
8.
acres.
No, it's 2 acres.
2 acres.
It's up there on the screen now, the
Yeah,
dimensions.
there they are.
Mm-hmm. Consensus, 2 acres, a rooster. 1, 2, 3. 3?
Do you want to vote?
I say yes.
All right, so they're allowed Jim Brown on RE1 and RE2.
Okay.
RE3, which is the 1.25 acres, is there any
Consensus,
consensus to add them there?
a rooster, yes. 2.
There's 2 only.
3.
And that's what's that? 1.25?
Yes.
1.25.
There
Yeah.
are 3 yeses. It needs 4.
Yeah. I say no on that one.
All right, so then that's your break.
Yeah.
So it's just allowed on RE1 and RE2 is the consensus tonight.
And is there any limit on the number of roosters you can have?
On the number?
Yeah, on the number. Do you have more than 1 rooster?
3,
Oh.
That's the other question.
primary, dominant, and 1 in, because you're not going to have 5.
3.
3? 3 sound good, rooster folks? Okay.
Consensus? Yeah.
Consensus to allow 3 roosters on the RE1 and RE2. 1, 2, 3. Barb, you either in? or-
Yes.
All right, so it's 3 on those 2 lots sizes, Jim,
Yep, okay,
and banned everywhere else.
okay.
All right.
So,
We're getting somewhere.
I didn't hear any discussion on bees, so that's fine, so maybe we can just go to the horses, the equines up here next. I think that was the other thing, and kind of
Yeah,
take.
I've got one question on bees.
Okay.
You took out the language for swarming and all that, which last time, I remember the board, we actually talked to a number of beekeepers. A prior board member was a beekeeper. I think they talked to somebody in the Illinois Beekeeper Association, and I don't have it, I don't know the page number, maybe you can pull that up. But the whole swarming thing, we kind of changed all the verbiage that we had in terms of making sure there's some barrier so that when the bees leave the hive, they start up 6 feet or higher. Because otherwise, if you don't do that, this is what the beekeepers told us. They can go over to the next door's neighbors where they have a little kiddie pool and sting people. You risk that when they swarm. And what I hear, we just said, well, we'd go after them if they sting somebody, then we'll go after them for doing it. That seems crazy. I'm trying to understand why we took language out that.
I think if you could go to the B section, Jim, and read, I think there is protection still from that, because it's a setback, and then it also talks about to get that 6-foot height so they go out.
Yeah, it's on page 14, I apologize, it's on page
Yeah.
14, I didn't know we were jumping to bees.
But honeybees don't generally swarm, they just, that's a wasp.
Again, my only pushback on that, Administrator Rooney, is that we talked to beekeepers, and I'm just telling you, they said that language was acceptable. So all I'm saying is by removing it and saying swarming could result in fines or other adverse actions, again, I think we're punting. Beekeepers were fine with that language. I'm just asking why. So, thank you.
Jim, can you show what we changed? I don't remember much change in that.
Yeah,
one.
there was a requirement, and I'm trying to recall someone, it was, yeah.
No
I
no
can't remember.
comments
Anyway, it
from
didn't
the
make it in.
public,
All I know
please.
is it
Yeah.
didn't make it in. I can't
Yeah.
remember why.
Go ahead, Mike.
I think the gist of the change, as I recall, the flyaway barrier was if you were less than 25 feet from the lot line. So the draft ordinance, the 24 draft ordinance, doesn't allow that at all. So you have to be 25 feet from the lot line to start with. So therefore, the way it was written last time is if you were going to be closer than 25, you would need to have that barrier to force them to go up before they were, they'd be over the neighbor's property. So in some ways, I would view that as better if you were on a tight lot to still be allowed to do it. We've made it right now more restrictive than it was in the 20.
More safe, Jim. It's more safe.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see that point up there about the 25 feet.
20 feet.
Okay.
All right.
Horses, on to horses.
So on to horses. So, who wants to keep the the provisions regarding horses the same as they are now. That's with no limits, and yeah, I'm gonna put the chart back up. Okay, and now I lost it. Oh, I was scrolling through.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
By the zoning, recommended by the zoning commission.
So horses are allowed down to the R1 zoning district. They are not allowed in R2, R3, and R4. And if I switch back, so we're talking about R2 is 15,000 square feet. So horses would be allowed on lots that have a minimum lot size of 30,000 square feet. Roughly, yeah, 43,000.
So is the question right now locational?
Just keep, keep, or keep.
You mentioned numbers and location, now,
Yeah,
so which one?
no,
are we-
the question was keep all the provisions the same. Start there. That was the question.
Do we want to?
Do you want to
Yeah,
accept what
right.
the 2024 zoning commission
Yeah.
has recommended? So a show of hands of yes, you want to not change it.
Weren't they permitted on the R2, R3, and R4 as well?
No.
What if they're already existing there? They grandfathered in, basically? Okay. Non-conforming, okay. All right.
So is there a show of hands?
Okay.
To
Consensus
take
then?
it and accept it as it's been presented to
Mhm.
you from the zoning commission?
Good. 1, 2.
There's two.
Okay. So is there any desire to impose limits on the number of horses in the districts, any of the districts?
Okay, Mike's 1,
Yes, is,
2,
I mean,
3,
if we, yeah.
To impose limits, numerical limits.
4.
Of animals, yeah.
On horses, yeah. Horses, donkeys, whatever.
Okay, it looked like we had 4.
All right, so we want to impose limits. So that just, from here, I'd just like to hear from people.
Okay.
Yeah.
Discussion.
Yeah, discussion.
Mike, go ahead.
The county is still 1 animal per acre or fraction thereof.
Mm-hmm.
That's been working. I don't think there's an issue with that. I mean, this is one of those things where we're carrying on the difference here. And again, we're a little bit more liberal than the county because we've defined equines more, right? We allow more under that definition than the county does. So I think that's a good thing for us. We're not just saying it has to be a horse. You know, we've got donkeys and mules and other things like that. So I think, and to the point that was made when we had this discussion with the, I'm blanking. Ponderosa North Empire, what's that subdivision?
Palomino.
Palomino, thank you, Palomino. Captain, a question, thank you, Captain, a question. You know, when we went through that concern there, the bigger concerns from Sandy, Klinke, and those guys were, you know, the paddock and the stable, and we've already, you know, moved away to allow lean-tos and those sort of things. So that's also different than the county. But none of them were saying we want 10 horses. So I think we could, you know, consider that a pass-through and then a bonus for our folks that, you know, it's more than just your traditional horse.
Ed, go ahead.
I also have recently, again, just confirmed past conversations with both the horse owners group and those that live in Campton Equestrian Estates, and the Kane County and many other counties' requirement for, you know, an acre of horse is based on feeding that horse on the land, not necessarily just feeding them grass hay. So it was decided in the past by the horse owners group that we needed to have a minimum lot area of 1 acre to have horses, so it would remove it from that, that's .069 acre, the R1, it would keep it in the estates districts only. Again, this is a past recommendation. And then for horses on a lot with a manure management plan, in other words, they're removing their manure by a dumpster or something, maximum number of horses was 1 horse per 1/2 acre. So as you move up, you obviously could have more horses. So 1 horse per 1/2 acre, starting at the RE3 is the past recommendation, and I've talked to a number of people in that group that continue to say that's a workable number, and that's one they were happy with.
With the manure management plan for 2, for 1/2 an acre.
Correct.
Right, that
Well,
was-
for,
yeah,
no,
okay, yep.
for all of them. With the manure management plan, you can have 1 horse per half acre.
That's what I
And
meant.
that's already in, I believe it's still in the 2024, something
Okay.
about the manure management.
It is.
And that's with all the REs, correct?
Yeah, you'd start off essentially with 1
Mhm.
and finish with up to 8 under that calculation.
Okay.
Is that acceptable to everybody?
Consensus? Yep. All right, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Yes, but I just want to clarify, or trustee Burston is correct, you can have 2 with the manure management plan, because you don't want to have 1 lonely horse. you know,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah. You could have
Okay.
up to 2 and finish with 8.
All right. Consensus is yes. Good.
All right, and then, so there's no change to RE1 through R1. Is there a change there or not? I'm not sure I understood that.
Well, I mean, there needs to be a change,
Duh.
because the 2024 allows it in R1, and we're saying no,
Mhm.
only in the residential estates, and that's, if somebody's going to ask a question, that's what I'd suggest, yes.
Yeah, so it's just in the
Oh, just in the RE, okay. So R1 will be deleted here. On to barnyard animals, this is goats. The fowl was in there, rabbit, we could insert that back in, that was brought up last time. All the other animals. Again, question, how many would like to accept the draft regulations regarding barnyard animals as forwarded from the commission? We already made 1 change. Okay, yeah, no, I did too. So from here, I guess, this is, just open it to discussion here. I mean, there's different things on shelters, the types of animals, the numbers of animals. I'm not sure where we want to go.
Are we adding sheep, which was removed for some reason?
Yeah, the commission was strongly against sheep.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
I think they defined livestock on
Mhm.
farm
Right,
properties to
As
be,
for
to be
sheep.
sheep,
That was under
cattle, milk
livestock.
cows. Were livestock
Yeah.
on
I
to
mean,
be
they-
on a
they-
farm.
yeah, that-
Okay.
I have a
Ed, go ahead.
suggestion, thanks. Just due to the difference in size, I think it maybe to try to get to some type of consensus here, we just consider a multiplier. Maybe if you can have X number of horses, it's X times 3 for other barnyard animals, based on the fact that they're generally smaller. Now, you get into alpacas, I've seen some of those I wouldn't want to tangle with, or, no, llamas, sorry, that's what I meant. Other things, they're smaller, so maybe the multipliers, I'll throw out a 3 as a multiplier. You could have 3 more of those than you could have of a horse.
Do you want to allow the barnyards on the chart, though? They were allowed in R1s. Do you not just want to keep them restricted to REs as you did the equine? Or do you want to let them go to one smaller?
I would suggest one smaller.
I would
Because there's a
too.
lot of much smaller animals.
Yes.
Well, I want to talk about which animals we've excluded. And
If you go back to the
that too.
chart,
But there are
Jim.
smaller animals, so I think you could move it down to a smaller property.
Looks like there's a consensus to move it down one.
No, that wasn't the consensus of the question.
Oh, you want
Question.
to, okay,
It's a question.
so if we could get to the chart,
Yeah.
barnyard animals are allowed as a recommendation down to R1. Is there, and then there's a consensus to keep that? Yes, it looks like there are. And
Okay.
then the next question is, do you want to go with the multiplier of 3 to the equine?
And that's really my question.
Okay, and you got a question?
I'm not sure if 3 is the right number. I get it. I'm not sure what animals we're multiplying and, to get to that. So in particular, rabbits that were brought up last time. Rabbits were not mentioned in the zoning ordinance, the draft ordinance, as I understand it, because we're not regulating rabbits. And so I know there are people in the village that actually raise rabbits for food,
and so I don't know how many rabbits they raise, and we could get into a whole conversation like we did about chickens, but when we're talking about rabbits, 3 times however many number of horses you can have doesn't seem like very many rabbits to me.
Yeah. I think we should
So
have.
rabbits.
No regulation.
So Jim Brown, rabbits weren't regulated in the 2024
Yeah.
recommendation. So,
They were not.
so is
Okay.
everybody okay with not regulating rabbits?
Consens- Yeah.
No.
Oh, you're not
And
okay with
I
that?
had a question about that, the types of animals. Again, I wanted to discuss that at some point. I think the question is more for the village attorney. If we don't include something as permitted, then it's generally not permitted, correct?
If it's, the way that it's written right now in the 2023, the current ordinance, it does have a list of what these animals shall be classified as. So if it is not included, then it would not be permitted. Now, if it's a list that is like generally includes, which I think that might be in the 2024 ordinance, I'm not sure if it's in this section, then it's just a general inclusion. So it would not be prohibited if it's not listed.
But
Like
as
the home-based business.
But that's fine, that's a great explanation of something that is something else. But as written, animals permitted is very specific, and I think they intended it to be that way.
Yep.
And so if it's not on the list, you can't have it.
That's what it would mean if it's not on the list.
Okay, and that's why I wanted to discuss why the zoning commission thought sheep were different than goats or a llama. Why they didn't include the most popular 4-H animals, sheep, rabbits, and guinea pigs. Turkeys, and then why the heck anybody put guinea fowl back in there, I don't know. So those, I mean, maybe we're not there yet, but I'd like to discuss that. I think the list is, I would prefer it to be a little different.
Jim?
Yeah, like I said, guinea pigs, fish in someone's backyard pond, I tell you right now, no staff is gonna go out and regulate that stuff. I mean, we just aren't. I mean, that's why. I mean, salamanders, I mean, they have outside. I mean, it's like, how can I come up with an entire list? There's just some things, and I will say this about code enforcement, okay? It's maybe not what you think. There's a lot of discretion. There's a lot of discretion involved. As far as numbers, there's not always numbers. Most of the nuisance code doesn't have numbers in. I can think of 2 examples in a previous town where I got called out on construction debris in someone's yard. One, there was blocks stacked up. That guy was told to move it. The second place, there were 3 planks, 2 by 4 by 12, laying along the house. I told the complaining guy, I'm not gonna touch that. There's a lot of discretion that goes on. So when you get into something like guinea pigs, rabbits, fish, I mean, I can't come up with a list of every animal, every conceivable animal that someone might have.
Well, could I ask a question?
That's just why we formed the list this way. The guinea fowl was thrown out, it was not taken out. I don't really have any, I don't care one way or the other about guinea fowl, guinea pigs, whatever. But I think guinea pigs, to me, that's something that when I grew up, people had those in their homes. That's like, sometimes rabbits too. So,
I think we should
I mean,
add
if you want to add
rabbits.
anything in, I'm fine. I'm fine with. I'm just saying, some of this,
Yeah.
we're
I
going
think
to
we
reach
should
the
add
point where I
rabbits to
can't include
barnyard.
everything that's in there. I mean, I
Yeah.
just can't.
Add rabbits to barnyard
Yeah,
animals.
I mean, that's fine.
May I
That's,
make a suggestion that concurs with
Sure,
what President
go
Winnicke is
ahead.
saying? I'd like to add rabbits. We can keep the other animals out. As I said last time, if you've ever gone to a real county fair, guinea pigs
That's
are not
correct.
your indoor variety, the ones that they raise for 4-H. They're
I mean,
huge.
that's out of county.
And that's what we're trying to encourage here, a semi-rural lifestyle. So, anyway, we had something in the last zone which I thought was good, and I don't know why it was removed. Because we can't make an all-inclusive list. I can't list all the animals. I would like to add rabbits, and then I would like to add back other generally well-accepted domesticated livestock animals not specifically permitted herein may be applied for, from the village or with a special use permit or something. In other words, you can ask. If it's not on the list, you can ask to have something else, if we didn't contemplate that.
Well, I mean, that's just the staff discretion that would normally occur anyway. I mean, that's what normally occurs.
okay.
I think we have a different legal definition and discretion definition. So, I mean, I'd like to, it's pretty clear.
Yeah.
Legally, it's enforceable. So if we have a different staff or a different board, that discretion might be changed. I want it to be
Right.
legally accurate.
Well, yeah, and I understand, and there's another general principle, the village doesn't have, there's nothing that compels a village to enforce its own ordinances either. So, I mean, that's, get right down to that. I mean, there's all types of discretion that we use on a daily basis regarding code
So
enforcement. I mean,
the language that's up on the screen is I think it's from the definitions, right, Jim?
2020.
yeah.
Right, so that defines what barnyard animals is, at least what's proposed. And then later on in the code, it speaks of, barnyard animals are, this section governs keeping of barnyard animals in all zoning districts where they're permitted pursuant to the table 9 and 9.1, 2, and 3. It really could be read that this is not an exclusive list. If there's an animal that's not on this list that would, some people might think is a barnyard animal. So stronger language, if you're looking to restrict the types of animals, you would say are limited to these types of animals. Now, there's also language in, I think it was in another section that talked about the types of animals, at the beginning of Article 9, the leading paragraph, it says, these provisions do not apply to animals typically kept as household pets, such as but not limited to the following: dogs, cats, rodents, and reptiles. Now, that says such as but not limited to, so there could be animals that are included in the barnyard animals list, or if you had included rabbits, that could be considered a household pet, and it would not control that. So if you do want to restrict the types of animals, and you want to classify them as barnyard animals, I would have a restrictive list.
So we do have another list under livestock. That's where sheep appear.
And that's more of a restrictive list, right?
Because livestock is not a.
All right. Tom, you have a comment?
Yeah, is there, can we handle the barnyard animals kind of like, include the rabbits, but handle them kind of like we're handling the chickens? Just get, this is a not to go crazy number, okay? Just to make people feel at peace that they don't think they're going to get destroyed on numbers. That's kind of where I'm at on this. I don't know about you, Mike, if you have any ideas on that?
Yeah, Mike, go ahead.
The multiplier is not a bad idea. I think we have to make a provision that currently there's no equine on R1, so that would multiplier of 0, so we would have to say 3. And, we should have sheep back in there, because you're right. That's one of the most popular 4-H. My buddy out in Kirkland's been raising sheep for 25 years. So I would think that, and then, yeah, we got to get guinea hens out. That's just, I don't know where that came from. That we would hear those miles away all the time. And then, am I hearing we want to regulate rabbits? Rabbits are generally
No.
pets.
No, we should include rabbits. Yeah.
No,
Mike's saying
to regulate them.
we
We
shouldn't
don't
have
want to
them.
regulate.
No,
No, right. We don't want them on the list.
No, no.
They're pets. And that, yeah, so I think, would you, so we'd have to pull sheep out of livestock. I think nobody wants hogs, right? We're all cool with that? All right. Bison, no bison.
No bison.
Or if you want one, it's a special use. And then could you scroll back to the barnyard animals real quick?
They don't, do they have this?
Because
You're just adding sheep in.
well, to add sheep, take out guinea hens or fowl, and I think there was one other. You're scrolling on a laptop. I was doing that last night at work too. I get it. Okay. Almost. And scene. Okay. Alpacas, yes, because it's essentially a hoofed animal. Okay, ducks. Yeah. Ducks, geese. I know the conversation, and swans. I know the conversation, they wanted to try to have it as not chickens. That's what the zoning commission was going after. But I don't know if the multiplier works for those animals. And the multiplier based on size of the hoofed animals and their, rough poop production, manure production, and wanting them to herd animals. So on a R1, you'd need 3 of them so they can pal around, that type of thing. So I think I'm good with that, but I'm not sure what to do about the fowl.
Ed, go ahead.
Thanks, President Winnicke. There was a break previously between small barnyard animals and mid-size or large, and then horses were different. So that's one way to address the smaller ones. To be clear, I don't want to regulate rabbits. I want to allow people to have some barnyard rabbits that are not pets, that are cute and cozy in their house, that, like somebody said, they're going to probably eat them. I think, a few of those should be allowed, and that's why I thought it should be added to the list. Or maybe if they want to have barnyard pets, that's fine too. Whatever you do with them out there is, as long as you're within the law, it's fine by me. The other thing is to include, because we only now are including ducks. There's geese are large. I mean, you could include fowl, poultry, and fowl chickens. That's a lot of geese.
But you want to strike the guinea.
I think are we all in agreement on striking the guinea hens?
Because they're very loud.
Yes, okay. And then trustee Millette, and I concur, suggested that we add back sheep as one of the barnyard animals.
yeah.
Do we agree in that?
Yes, yes. 1, 2, 3, 4, all of, yeah.
Okay. And then to deal with the smaller barnyard animals, maybe we could do a multiplier of animals over X pounds and I don't know.
Nah.
I know it's getting complicated.
No.
I don't know how to come up with it, so.
Well, do you even feel that you need to put a limit on these animals?
No.
Are you okay with just striking sheep is not a livestock, it's now allowed? And then you've eliminated the guinea with fowl that are loud, because they will be a problem. And are you okay with just, unless there's a nuisance about the number, we just let people live and let live?
Yeah, I agree with that.
I think that sounds nice, but it's not very fair to the chicken folks, because we're regulating or saying how many they can have to prevent a problem, but you can have as many goats as you want. And I think we need to come up with some kind of number.
Have you ever been to Ireland?
Janet was first, Tom, so hold on.
I wouldn't be counting any of these animals, but I feel like turkeys is missing. I don't see it on any of our lists. So I think we have people in the community that are raising turkeys. I'd like to continue that.
Yeah. Go ahead, Tom.
What I'm hearing from the crowd, or at least the people I've talked to, everybody's in, some people are more of a broad range of animals. I've heard that. I know people that have goats, chickens, they're into rabbits. It's just like their preference of what they like to grow and eat, or whatever. Or some people are talking, chickens, it's because their kids like them. One person's walking their goat in the neighborhood. That's why I'm kind of thinking of like a number that would be like, okay, 2 max, not to exceed. In other words, you tailor it to your thing. We're not telling you what to have, what kind of animals, how many you can have. I mean, specifically, because I think that gets crazy. I think we're talking about, we're going to drive this guy nuts. We're going to send somebody out and they're going to be going, okay, you're over 2 goats, but you're down 2 chickens. No, how about just like a broad number, just to say, hey, okay, if you just kind of have to, somewhere you're going to have to call the Animal Fest over. And you're just going to have to say, well, hey, I guess I can't get any more animals. I mean, I only have this big of a property. I'm not going to go over this. But I think it'd be specific. I think it's more of like a general size. Now, the only problem, I get it with the bigger animals. Maybe we break that out and say, okay, so many of these and so many of these. And that's it. I don't know. Am I crazy, or is that, I want to keep it open to people to choose what they want.
Yeah.
But not, once again, my sole purpose in this, living in an HOA neighborhood and not living in these places that don't have it, is I am trying to do my best that I just don't want, other than nuisance, I want to keep something from going crazy. That's all. And so that would be my goal.
Is there a desire to break it on, as you discussed as a group, on the animals with hooves, use your multiplier, and the other ones, just do it by nuisance? Could that be peace in our time? That we use the 3 multiplier?
That's good.
And not 0 for R1, just do 3 and a multiple of horses on the RE lots. For hoofed animals, that's the generally bigger ones. And the other number of animals, and the duck and the goose and the swan, unless we get a complaint of noise, we're not going there.
I agree.
Because it's hard to put a number on number of rabbits and the
Yeah,
number of.
I agree.
Until we have a problem, we don't need to solve it.
Yeah.
Would that work? So Ed, would you restate it and see if we got the consensus?
I don't think I can restate it any better than you did, but for hooved animals, there would be a multiplier of the number that was thrown out, it's 3, which is still up for discussion, but a multiplier of 3, so if you can have, for example, 2 horses, then you could have 6 hooved animals. But the other animals, ducks, geese, turkeys, which I would be in favor of adding back in as well, those would be, no numerical limit on those smaller ones.
Is that peace? Show of hands,
Consensus?
consensus.
Yeah, consensus.
Just for clarity on the lot size again?
The R1 would be 3 for the hoofed animals. And then it goes up.
R1 being what acre lot?
0.69 acres.
3/4.
It's basically 3/4 of an acre. You could have 3 hoofed animals.
Well, let's go consensus on that.
Are we open to changing that to 4? I mean, when you think about it, someone has 3 little goats. Does it matter if they have 4? You know what I mean? When you really picture this, you know what I mean?
So,
I mean,
you
think
would
about
like-
it. Like we're coming up with
Fair,
arbitrary
yeah.
numbers, but think about like 3 little goats, 4 little goats, 5 little goats. Like, why 3? Why are we doing 3? I feel like,
Because each one
can we
needs a
bump this
partner.
number up some or discuss a larger
I think
number?
that's fine.
Change the multiplier is what I'm talking about. We threw
Yeah.
out 3. Like, is there any reason there's not 4
don't know.
or 5? I mean, 3 goats, 4 goats, 5 goats, like, when you picture how many goats or alpacas, like, where's the issue? Like, what number is the problem? We're
Go
saying
ahead,
3
Jan.
3
Yeah.
alpacas is the problem?
So I'm not for
Oh,
any
no.
numbers, as I think everyone knows. And so for me, 4 is better than 3. But I think we didn't, the zoning commission didn't break this down in the way that we're talking about now, because the hoofed animals seem like a convenient division from the fowl, but within the hoofed animals, to Nick's point about, cute little baby goats, well, these are typically smaller animals than llamas and alpacas. So then it's kind of arbitrary whether the number is 3 or 4, because if we were just talking about goats, a bigger number would probably be okay. But if we're talking about strictly alpacas and llamas, well, then we might, if we were wanting to have a number, then we'd be thinking about a smaller number. This is one of the reasons why
I don't know.
numerical limits are problematic in general.
I tend to agree with that. Ed, go ahead.
I don't
We're just-
disagree that some hooved animals are larger than others, but I would say this is the reason why, we contemplated what we did in the past. I know we don't want to go back to that, or most people don't want to go back to that, but I think this is a good compromise, the hooved versus non-hooved, because it's tough to say, if you've got a little Nigerian goat versus, some gigantic thing, or a little baby doll Southdown sheep versus, something that could knock you over. We've got to come up with some kind of compromise here if we're going to come up with some number. So the 3 times why 3, not 4, not 5, that's basically going back to, okay, what do we allow for horses? What size are they? And, okay, well, I don't want to be unfair to them and allow way more, llamas than you would compared to horses. So that's why that's why 3 I thought was a decent number to start with.
Go ahead.
Could you live with starting off this point, 3/4 of an acre being 4, and then the multiplier of the horse on the other REs? To give Nick a little something for the little goats. 4 for the R1, and then do the multiplier times horses on the REs, is what Nick's kind of asking for. Could that get us 4 votes for a compromise? Show of hands?
Yep.
To be clear, it's beginning with 4 animals, and then a multiplier of 4
Then I'll say yes.
on the other districts.
Yes.
For the, just to want to move.
For the hooved animals.
I'm just saying it from
And-
my perspective, just to get past the animal discussion, yes, I will go with that way.
Yeah, we need to.
So, and then the second half of that, no restriction on the non-hooved. We'll just let people live with it unless there's a problem.
Why don't we just do same as chickens, right? I mean, same as chickens for the other thing that's fowl. If you want to have a combination of,
A lot of people
15
do,
chickens and
yeah.
15 turkeys,
And ducks,
just limited
yeah.
to that number we already have. I mean, this is experiment, right? I mean, again, we're still way more than anybody around us. We're trying to make this work. So,
So you're saying basically, kind of like what I was saying, okay? So if you're really into chickens, you do all chickens. If you want to do a mix, you got a mix, but you're limited to the mix. In other words, I love that. I think it gives a freedom to people. I mean, if I'm really into turkeys, I'm going crazy with turkeys. I don't want somebody telling me, I mean, then, you know what I mean? I think it's good to have it that way, where it's just it's a unit. It's like, okay, these things, you have so many. Yeah, I'm good with that.
So-
I'm good with that.
Yeah.
But are we saying they can have 25 chickens plus 25 fowl, or no?
In-
Feathered animals, 25 and 50. Okay.
Okay, all right, good. We need to move on.
Is there consensus on that? It
Mike,
looks like there is.
Yeah, there is, good.
Okay, we're solved that, Jim.
Oh,
Now we get to the real, the
Oh.
C and D plates. We think we captured what was agreed upon on Thursday. Is-
Just real quick, sorry, trustee Boatner has a question.
Oh, did you do the consensus on the 4 and 4 multiplier? I think you went right into.
No, I think
foul.
everybody said
Everybody
yes.
Do you have
said
that
yes.
confirmed?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I thought you voted yes on that. Yep. Now, if you look at the language that we tried to capture from last Thursday's discussion, it's right there in front of us on the large vehicles, AKA D plates.
all right, let's wait for Tracy to get back, our clerk. She just stepped away for a second.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do we want to take a 5-minute bio
May
break?
I say so? Good idea.
5-minute
What do you-
recess for,
I'll get it for you. Okay. Are you saying 5 minutes? You have to say it. We're taking a 5-minute recess.
it's done, it's done. It's done and now nobody's mad at each other.
Animal
President Winnicki? President Winnicki? President Winnicki? Hi. Do I need to make a motion to continue the meeting since we're at 3 hours? Okay. When you get back into more, 3 more hours, yeah.
Okay, we're gonna reconvene here. Yep. Okay.
I think that there is a question. We have done these zoning by district. There are districts that have people with greater acreage.
That's true.
They're listed as an R1 district, but they might have 2.5 or 3 acres. They'd qualify to be an RE1. I guess we've done it by district, not by acreage size. So, we need, I think that the intent and the spirit is very clear, and the minutes will reflect it for the current administrator, Brown, or his successor, because Brown's gonna write very clear notes that we've done it by district, but we have the intent on the regulation to treat people with their.
Why don't we just put it in the regulation then? That should be part of the text that says this will be enforced by lot size or whatever you want to say, rather than district. So if somebody has a 2.5 acre lot in a much smaller district, these regulations will, because they're listed in.
As it relates,
Yeah.
as it relates to animals.
But I don't think it can be in the notes or the minutes or, I mean, I want future boards and future everybody to know this is how this gets enforced.
So we're gonna maintain having zoning districts in the zoning code, but far as it's related to animal enforcement of what you can have, we'll do it based on the acreage. Is that lot size? Lot size. So we'll tell Jim, and Carmen and I will work with him on how to write that in for your approval on December 3rd. So we'll capture that.
Janet?
Without changing the whole zoning district concept, we don't want to do that, just for animals.
My understanding is that we are well aware that there are a number of errors in the zoning district that's being applied to various lots in the village. We've tried to correct as many as possible, but I think BZO Brown has been pretty clear with us that going through every lot and every subdivision right now is something he doesn't want to do and we don't want to pay him to do.
That's right.
And so he has gone through and looked at subdivisions and said, you know, this looks like it's mostly RE3 to me. I'm going to call it RE3. I can see there might be a few outliers, but I'm going to call it RE3. Or it's RE2 or it's R1 or whatever. So my understanding is that in the same spirit that there may be some changes to some of this text in the future as well, we know every year we have to do a new map amendment, right? Or confirm that we haven't changed anything. And so I presume next year we're going to be trying to become more accurate with this map, and we're going to try and resolve the types of discrepancies that would lead us to into a fork between the square footage and the zoning classification. So it sounds to me like that could happen now, but it would be a goal as the map is refined next year to reduce that to not very many instances. Is that right?
I think that's true, but I think the spirit of what you've discussed tonight, you want on enforcement on animals of any kind or type, you want to, you're doing it based on acreage and the size. So we will do enforcement until we get a map revised based on the acreage, not on the zoning district. But we're not throwing out zoning districts as a term in the code. Just for enforcement, so there's clear direction. We're not going to enforce. If somebody's got a 2.5 or a 3 acre and they're labeled R1, they're really an RE3
three, they just haven't been, the map hasn't caught up. So we're not gonna do enforcement. You're giving direction to whoever the code enforcement officer and zoning officer, and we're gonna, as you said, get the map corrected as time goes. Is that fair to everybody? And Jim and Carmen will work on language to make that clear legally for next meeting.
That's good.
All right, so
Sounds
now we can move to,
Can we move to extend the meeting beyond our normal boundary? Since it's 9:30, I move to extend the meeting.
Second.
all right, so before you is the, what Jim and I thought
I know.
there was understanding on the C and D plates.
No. All in favor?
Aye.
Did you make a motion, Ed?
Yeah, he did.
Officially,
Yeah,
you
seconded.
seconded?
Yeah.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
I saw everybody shake their heads.
Okay.
So now. Where are the names? You didn't have to the names. Jim's got that up there. Is there a motion to, or is there a consensus to accept that's what we decided last Thursday? Show of hands, or do we want to discuss it?
Go ahead, Janet.
I'm just wondering whether or not in items 2 and 3, B2 and 3, whether we're saying what we mean to say, because I think we started talking about 2 deplated trucks, and then we started talking about commercial deplated trucks. So I think we maybe started with 2 non-commercial ones, and then we allowed a commercial one, and I'm not sure it was ever intended to allow 3 deplated trucks, along with the unlimited number of B and C plates. So
I
I'm,
think that's what was discussed
That was
last
what
time.
was, that's
Yeah,
what we captured. Is that what
Yeah.
everybody intended?
That was the conversation, yeah.
I think trustee Burson makes at least a point, and she may have made a couple points here, but the one that I think I would concur with is the maximum is 2 trucks, 2 D plates. So you've got a non-commercial and a commercial, it's still 2. That's the way I would like that to be read, but it's not really how it reads. Right now, it looks like it's 3.
Okay, there is a proposal to change to no greater than 2 D plates irrespective of 1 and 1. Jim, can you write that?
Yeah, so essentially, you just want a maximum of 2 deplated trucks. Does it matter if they're commercial or not, or non-commercial?
Well, I think that they want to still keep one commercial, not 2 commercial on the property.
If
Because
we
that
rem-
just starts being a business being run out of the back.
If you were to remove from B2, just remove non-commercial, so maximum of 2 D-plated pickup trucks and, or with, or inclusive of a maximum of 1 commercial D-plated pickup.
Is that have consensus? Show of hands.
Can I make a comment real quick?
Yeah, go ahead,
And this
Tom.
is partly for levity. We are counting trucks. But just saying that, we're counting trucks. I just want to make sure everybody knows this is called counting trucks. Going back to this whole counting thing, I'm so sick of it. Oh, and by the way, manure spreaders, this is a joke, I'm sorry. We don't have manure spreaders on there, so.
Jim Brown, will you state what we've just agreed to change, so we get it right?
Right, the idea is you have a maximum of 2 trucks, so you could have 2 non-commercial plated trucks, or you could have 1 non-commercial plated truck and 1 commercial.
Just D plates.
2 commercial.
Okay.
Correct.
And it
Is
does, it
there a
doesn't.
show of hands that everybody agrees with that?
Well, it doesn't change B or C, right, at all?
No.
Okay. Okay, show of hands? All right, consensus is move forward. Yeah, good.
And then number 4 is still important, because I know a number of you wanted to make sure that we
No,
say what we're not doing. Jim?
I added this in, it's kind of funny, in my drive home from the meeting last night, I passed
Pardon?
a C-plated box truck.
regardless of light function.
Yeah, so I put that in because we have an unlimited number of vehicles with B and C plates.
Oh.
So it just clarifies that. And I threw in a bunch of other things that we obviously
Okay.
don't want. That's where
Yep.
And then the one item that still remains, folks, so is that language restriction good? Nick has a question.
Question, what is a commercial trailer? I would strike that or be more, clear on what a commercial trailer is. I mean, is it an open equipment trailer? The language I had suggested was an open trailer that has equipment on it. Yeah, an open trailer that actually has equipment on it. Because you can own an open trailer and it's not commercial. You can own an enclosed trailer and it's not commercial. So,
I think that's, if I may, this falls under the same thing as commercial versus non-commercial on a pickup truck. The plate doesn't change, but Ed's Plumbing on this side of it, my number and everything all over it, that's clearly commercial. Same thing with the trailer. If I'm storing a race car or my tools or a John Deere tractor or whatever, and that's a recreational vehicle, which we have defined, then that's non-commercial. A commercial trailer, again, Ed's Plumbing all over it, all kinds of other stuff, well, that's a commercial trailer. So then that's what we're looking at not having here.
Mike, go ahead.
That's the way it's currently written, is that have a consensus to
What-
restrict the commercial.
Mike wants to say a word.
I do actually have, this is actually poignant for me. I'm finally getting into what I care about myself. What about reproduction civil war artillery on trailers?
That's non-commercial. So
It's a go.
We're not for profit, right? We're not for profit? Okay, just checking.
Yeah.
That was a joke, folks.
No, I just turkey and I drop
Go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, I would just
But-
say real quickly,
All right.
Jim,
Yeah.
oh, sorry.
we're defining restricting trailers as commercial, right?
Okay,
Yeah,
yes.
and what Trustee Muncy said was correct, and my thought was more along landscape trailers, things like that, where you have a landscaping company and bring in that. That's why that was.
That's
Right.
what would be restricted.
He just said it? Okay. All right. Good. All right.
Is that the consensus of the group?
it is, it wasn't clear when it just says commercial trailers. That is, I agree.
So Jim, you'll make those edits?
Right, with the number of deflated trucks.
Yep.
Wasn't there, maybe we haven't gotten into it yet, the storage inside and outside?
Right, that's on the list. Yeah. So again, this is as was written last time, and then the other thing in this section 11.9 was indoor, outdoor. Right
Oh,
now.
yeah,
right
sorry,
there, if you
Jim,
read-
we gotta go back. Because the lawyer brings up a good point. We're trying to restrict one commercial D plate. I think we probably should say.
So, so may have identified a loophole. So if you have a number of B or C plated, let's say pickup trucks or vans, okay, and they're commercial in use, under this, I think they could be allowed on the property. And you have a home-based business restriction saying that you can't have additional traffic generated to the property that is outside of residential use. Maybe you expand that to traffic and parking, which would create a smaller loophole. If you had a contractor who was running a business outside of his property, he would not be able to park a number of B and C plated pickup trucks on this property. Now, he could have unmarked pickup trucks and say they're all for residential use. But with the way it's written, it does provide a loophole. So you can tighten that loophole by what I said and prohibit a home-based business from allowing a number of pickup trucks or any trucks with B and C plates to be parked on the property. And you don't have to call them out. You could just say generates excess traffic or parking of vehicles on site, whether they're guest vehicles or vehicle for use by the business. And then the loophole's even smaller. I don't know that you're going to be able to eliminate it entirely if you're allowing B and C plates.
Go ahead, Janet.
It seemed to me that this whole aspect was discussed in detail by the zoning commission, and my recollection of the part of the discussion I watched is that the B and C plate issue, they felt it was just too difficult to separate out people's work vehicles that they were bringing home, multiple family members that may potentially have these vehicles, and so I think they recognize the loophole that you're speaking of, but in the balancing of interests here, I felt that they came down on this side of it because it was, there were quite, easily conceivable legitimate uses of significant number of B and C plate vehicles. So could we get to some other number? If people want numbers, could you make it 10? Could you make it 5? I mean, could you make it 4? I guess, but I thought that they had explicitly declined to do that.
You could add another section to say irrespective, no greater number of commercial vehicles of 3 of any type, or 2, or whatever you want to do to close the loophole. If you want to count, as
Right.
Trustee Williams has said, and keep it in the counting game.
Right. I think if you're not going to restrict B and C plates entirely, which some communities do, then you'd have to come up with something else. Right. And, I mean, I'm just saying this from experience here. We have had some complaints, I think Jim knows, of, properties where there are, let's say, 8 pickup trucks, F-150s, parked on a driveway in a residential area. Now, whether or not that business is being run out of the property or not, I can't say for sure.
Right.
But, that's.
So if you want to get into the counting game, can you propose a number not to exceed
I
number?
like your
Well,
idea.
Ed was next, yeah.
I'd like to hear, after I speak, that discussion about that number that Trustee Burson, because I agree that could actually work. But also, another option could work is, number 1, an unlimited number of non-commercial vehicles with B and C plates, and a new number 2 would be a maximum of 2 commercial vehicles with B and C plates.
Janet?
I think a
So
simpler.
that would end up being 3 commercial, 2 B and C, and 1 D? Is that what you're saying?
Well, that's what I'm saying. That's what it gets to. So maybe your suggestion is better. I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there.
No, I don't care. I just want you guys to be clear what you want.
Yeah.
I was gonna, I guess this can leave you potentially with this language with 2 commercial D-plated trucks, but I was thinking about what if you kept everything as we've discussed, except that item 3 says a maximum of 3 commercial pickup trucks. Take out D-plate.
But the danger with that is you could end up with 3 Ds.
Well, we already have a maximum of 2 Ds.
What if you limited just commercial to?
Right, because you got a maximum on 2 Ds anyways. So,
We want to make
so the total number of commercial ones, however, B, C, D, whatever, would be 3. So you couldn't have more than 2 Ds anyway. So you'd keep 1, you'd keep 2, and then on 3, you'd merely take out the word D-plated and change it to 3.
Is everybody okay with that?
But just to be clear, that means I can have 3, concrete forming trucks. I mean, when you start talking about commercial D-plated trucks, these are
You get 2
large.
D-plated trucks. Number 2 says you get 2.
2 non-commercial.
No, you get 2 D-plated trucks.
So we're removing
They're
non.
pickup
Well, you could.
trucks, though.
D-plated pickup
Yeah.
trucks, yes. So all these are pickup trucks.
Yes,
That's
it
the
says maximum 2
difference.
non-commercials. So
All
these are horse trailer pickups, real nice F-350s, whatever, that are
All right,
non-commercial.
so if you take out the word non-commercial from number 2, and if you change number 3 from 1 to 3, and take out the word D-plated, does this get us closer?
Get your 3 Ds, though.
How can it get you 3 Ds? You
No,
can only
I
have
agree
2
with Trustee Burson,
Ds.
that gets you to 2. If it's a maximum of 2 D-plated pickup trucks, irrespective of commercial or non-commercial, then you would have a maximum of 2. But I think the intent was and I'm not picking on asphalt,
Well, we didn't
or
want 2
concrete or whatever,
commercial
but
Ds.
that would be 1 commercial D. That was the intent before, so now we would step up to 2.
Is there any way we just limit commercial pickups to, or commercial vehicles to 2?
That was going to be my next statement. You could
I don't know
keep
how to, I
everything
don't know
else
how
the
to do it.
same,
You
but
can say
yeah.
it more eloquently
Yeah,
than I
I
do,
mean,
but I'm
you
just
could
saying
have a
the
catch-all
max is
statement
2.
at the end, a
Is that crazy,
maximum
or
of.
you think 2 is too much?
X amount of commercial vehicles with the restrictions that you don't already allow, so box
So you
trucks.
keep everything as is.
So
but
B,
add
C,
a-
D, 2. Is too many? Too many? 1?
No, I'm on the 3 for commercial. 3, you know,
You don't want 3 Ds.
no, I want more than 2 Ds of any kind. And I understand the people who don't want more than 1 commercial D. So I was just trying to keep the language simple, but if it takes 4 statements to get there, that's okay.
But you're.
Words are cheap.
For commercial, you're saying 3, Tom's saying 2.
I'm saying 2. Are you saying 3?
I'm saying 3.
3
Over,
total.
including B and C plated vehicles.
So you are, okay.
Because people, I mean, it's real easy to get there.
I think what worries me, I mean, my pickup trucks for work, we always use pickup trucks because you can fully deduct them, where you can't do that with a car. So they were always Bs. I never pulled anything, but I had a B with a name on it. I mean, so I think Bs and Cs, I mean, I never thought of it till you mentioned it, actually. That is a concern. I mean, usually the foreman is a B truck. It's just common. So you could end up with 3 commercial vehicles on a property, where I think that might be a bridge too far. I think most people want to go with 2, right? What would you say, show of hands on how many
Oh, yeah,
commercial?
unlimited.
I'm just
on B
saying.
and C.
Yeah, what I'm saying is, like, how many commercial would you be comfortable with? I'm talking commercial. I'm not talking about people's passenger vehicles, whatever they want to do. That's
Tom
fine.
is proposing 2 commercial of any type. Is there a show of hands that want to restrict it to 2?
I'm fine with that.
And then,
And that's with the D plate, right?
well,
Anytime.
Any type.
is 2. Is there, what's the hands for 2? Commercial? 1,
Commercial anytime.
2, 3, and trustee Barbara?
And then we're going to go to D plate? Because, are
No,
we
no, it's all in.
eliminated?
No,
So what it's saying is, basically, regardless of B, C, D, or
Yeah.
You're
any of
limited
those
to 2.
classifications, the max commercial
Okay.
pickup trucks you can have, or trucks, is 2.
Okay.
And Janet's proposing 3.
And
Can we
if,
have- Can we have for
Mike?
consensus on that?
give me, talk me into why I'm wrong. I mean, you're not agreeing, so I'm just kind of getting a feel. What do you think about 3, 2?
Basically, you got 3 people want 2, and 3 people want 3. So you, President.
I say 3.
You got a call.
I say 3.
So it goes to 3.
Yeah.
I was going to say the mix part, so keep it at 1D commercial,
Okay.
right? So that could be 1D, 2 BC commercial, max. Okay.
Max of 3. All right.
My gosh.
Just on, can I bring up one point real quick?
Sure, go ahead, Tom.
Can I just go on something that's really easy to vote on?
Yeah.
Just so we got something we can feel good about. We did trucks pretty well. The next one I just want to vote on, and I think we skipped it last time, is the, yeah.
The what?
I don't really want Jim. I don't want you putting up signs.
No,
I think that should be, I think the sign thing, remember the whole thing with the, what was it for?
Oh, the zoning?
Zoning.
yeah, for variances
The
and so forth.
variance?
I just don't
Yeah.
want to pay
Want the
him
homeowner to
to
put
go
up their
put
own
up signs. I think
Oh.
that's kind of ridiculous. I was hoping that we would keep that.
That's the applicant's responsibility.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had, if I may, I had provided a picture from Boulder, Colorado, when I was out there, that have a write in yourself sign. It's it's got all the blanks in it, and they write in all of the specifics. So you don't have to have it pre-printed, it's not expensive. You just keep a stack of them, and then the zoning official or somebody pre-prints
Yeah,
that, and then the
that makes
residents
sense.
post it.
Yeah,
Mike,
I agree the applicant should post the sign.
Yeah.
And then you verify.
Yeah, what trustee Millet just said, as long as there's language that says that the village verifies that it meets the requirements, because the
Yeah,
state
'cause the clock's
statute-
gotta
yeah,
start,
State
yeah.
statute requires certain letter height and color and all of that, so, yeah.
So do we have consensus to,
Good job.
the applicant has to post the sign? As approved by the zoning
Oh,
official?
boy, unanimous.
All right.
Yay. All right.
All right,
If
now
we're
we
moving on
have
from
under
commercial-
other.
But we're, under commercial vehicles, we had discussed agricultural or farm properties, and we had discussed inside and outside, and I don't see why. So the agricultural district is where you The legal principal use of the lot, that's what you added, because it's not red, but that's what you added, correct? D?
That was on the language that's been forwarded to the other meeting, so that's
Okay.
the starting point.
Okay.
And there was only, I think, one trustee, it was trustee Boltner, who pretty much liked everything, and then the discussion went in different directions, including indoor and outdoor. So, now we're getting into, is there anything else here you want to change? Indoor, outdoor, the other paragraph, C, D, E, whatever. I think we're done with the top. Well, so here's, going back to B, you see residential districts, the following provisions apply to the overnight outdoor park. That would be,
That's what the 2024 folks put in there. B is outdoor, C is outdoor. And I had mentioned Kane County previously and currently says indoor and outdoor. Our previous said indoor and outdoor, and my preference was indoor and outdoor. And I think trustee Boatner had his a lot of thoughts in opposition to that as well.
Okay, the consensus is it only says outdoor. Is there a desire, raise of hands, to change it to indoor and outdoor? Raise of hand.
Why don't you state consensus?
Oh.
You agree with that?
Do you agree with, well, yeah, it's,
It's easier. If you agree with the way it's written, just outdoor parking county, not indoor.
Okay, they got it.
okay,
Okay.
thank you.
All right.
And now we have
Let's-
other items that haven't actually been addressed or discussed. I think there was a question from one of the trustees, Jim, about the dark sky ordinance and why it wasn't included in 2024, and I think you've got a good answer of what the commission did.
yeah, the commission, we went back and forth on this, and their final recommendation, determination was that we have a dark skies ordinance, and they felt it would be sufficient to have the provisions in one place and not have two parallel or similar or even exact provisions in two different ordinances, that it was sufficient to have it in one.
Yeah, go ahead.
My preference in this one would be due to the fact that finding the zoning ordinance is going to be hard enough for our residents, and then finding this section and exterior lighting and getting, if they're trying to be responsible, say, what can I do? What kind of lighting can I have? That's one, but then going into the code and trying to find the dark sky ordinance, and I mean, why can't we just reference it? Just reference, we have a dark sky ordinance, this is the ordinance number, I mean, it should just be referenced in here so I know. If I want to put up lighting all over the place and whatever, at least there's somewhere I can go I can find it.
Yeah.
That's why I would suggest.
What section would that go under, Jim?
It's in, I think it's Article 8. I don't.
Lights,
Yeah,
lights.
no, wait, yeah, I could find an appropriate place. I believe it's in Article 8.
Mike, go ahead.
I think that was one of the sidebar, the COPIC or somebody kind of suggested that as the exact same thing. It's just incorporated by reference and then have a hot link.
Yeah.
In this one, it's published.
All right, we'll put it in either section 8 or section 9, depending on where lights are at.
Yeah.
Okay? The consensus? Does anybody object to that? See no objections. Jim, you got your direction.
Yeah.
And I know I'm forgetting.
Well, we have accessory structures. There was talk last time to raise the percentages or go with just a solid number. So we have that still, self-storage facilities, gravel driveways.
That's it.
I
Yeah, so
think
if we
that's it.
could, under
I think that's it.
self-storage, it's not allowed. And most cities and towns don't allow it because they don't get any sales tax out of it, and they don't want it in their commercial area if it doesn't produce sales tax. That's not a factor for us since we don't have a sales tax. But do you want to permit,
That was the item I brought up. and
do you
I'd
want
like
to
speak
permit
it.
self-storage?
Well, I'd like to speak to it so people can consider.
Go ahead.
So we had an application for a self-storage facility that would take over what is now a gravel truck yard that also doesn't, I mean, the owners kind of wanted to get rid of, but anyway. It looked like it was going to be, well landscaped, well fenced, whatever, and those could all be part of the site requirements. Wouldn't be a lot of traffic, it's a self-storage facility. And then we have the option, such as the Village of Woodridge, to impose a tax on the rent. They charge 5% of self-storage rents, and that's a revenue source for them for any self-storage facility. It has not been included, it wasn't included in 2023, it was not included in 2024. I just think it's a use that might be even, you know, a better use than some in commercial districts, so it could be a special use that has to be approved in a commercial district to have a self-storage facility. I don't see the problem with it. They don't use our water, they don't use our sewer. We can tax them.
Part of a condition for approval.
Yeah.
Yes. So do we want to create it in all the commercial districts as a special use?
May I ask a question first, officially?
Yeah,
Ca-
go ahead.
So the 5% tax that trustee Muncy referred to in another community, as a non-home rule community, does our attorney agree that we would be able to assess a 5% tax if we wanted to?
I'd have to review it, but I know Woodridge is not home rule.
Okay, thank you.
Or, I'm sorry, Woodridge is home rule, excuse me.
Mm.
But I'd have to review under what, you know, structure they brought it. I'm not,
But is it-
immediately no.
But when you negotiate a condition, you got latitude. So in all commercial districts or just C1?
I'm suggesting C1, C2.
C1, C2?
Yeah.
RD,
Not RD.
if you're gonna have it in C1.
Well,
Yeah, I guess yes, I guess yes. I guess that's a commercial district as well.
Yeah,
technically,
so all
three.
commercial districts.
Unless
So
somebody
all
has
three.
unless somebody has a specific thought or objection.
consensus? All right,
Okay,
okay.
so we'll change the table, that will go S's, they're right under the 3 Ps for industrial design, okay, good.
And now gravel driveways, I think you need to show that section. It's not allowed in the smaller
Yeah.
R1s.
You have
but
to have
it's
an estate to have a gravel driveway.
RE, you have to have a state, and that's how it was, I think, in 23's ordinance as
It
well.
was, it was. What I'm suggesting, I apologize if I'm speaking out of turn. I brought this one up. I don't know, it just sounds a little elitist to say you have to have an estate to have a gravel driveway to me. Gravel driveways are pervious pavement, so they don't add to water issues, they don't add to heat issues.
That's
I mean, yeah, some people think they're ugly, I get it. But I just wanted to ask the board if, you know, if we would consider gravel driveways either in all districts or to some certain, but right now it's just the estate districts.
I have no objection.
I say all districts.
Question is, I mean, just for kicks and giggles, if a developer did come in, would he be exempt from putting in?
Oh, that's a good question.
That would be my only issue. I don't really care what people do, like, outside of, it's just, if a developer came in, would he be like, oh, wow, I don't have to put in driveways? That would kind of look a little bad.
Yeah, I would say if any large development came in, it would probably be under a PUD or annexation agreement, and we could specify design standards within there, including driveways.
And it's probably also covered under a subdivision ordinance currently.
I don't think so,
No.
I don't think so.
It's not?
I think that should be
Easily could be.
stated, though. I think that should be stated in our zoning ordinance about developers coming in. and-
Well, you can just state under your PUD, you put restrictions on a PUD every time, and everything's negotiable.
Yeah, okay.
So you could just say you're allowing gravel in all districts is the proposal. Is that acceptable?
Go ahead, Ed. Oh. You're saying yes? Okay.
Everybody's saying yes.
Everybody? Okay.
Yeah.
And then what was the last one I didn't count?
Accessory structures.
Yes, the 2% is in the code. There was a discussion of possibly getting to consensus of 3, but you wanted to wait till Mike was here to just give his point of view on that, because the zoning commission fought back and forth on sticking with 2. And the math, if you did 2.5, everybody would benefit. 3, some of the larger lots would benefit a lot. And Jim and I are very much, 3 should be your max. Don't go higher than 3 because
I
you're going to
agree.
create issues.
Go
So
ahead, Mike. Yep.
Another thing I wrote down. Okay. 4 acres and above, 2%, 2.5%, 2 acres to 4 acres, and then under 2 acres, 3%. That's my suggestion.
So the max is 3%, is what you're saying, on everything, on a smaller lot. Okay. Go ahead, Ed.
For trustee Millet, do you have any numbers, just so we get a perspective, and is that double the size of the accessory structures for the smaller lots, or 1.5, or 1.25?
50% more.
50% more?
Yeah.
Okay, and then the other range, is it about the same?
Well, we wouldn't be changing the bigger lots. It'd be 4 acres and larger would be the same. And so then
Well,
you'd
no,
get
I'm
an
comparing it
increase
to
of.
what's been historically up until today,
Yeah.
900, 1,800,
Oh,
2,800.
the hard numbers.
Yeah,
No, I didn't do the hard numbers. I apologize.
okay.
Well, when we did the discussion at the zoning commission, they picked 2 because other than the smallest lot, everybody benefited and got more coverage. They could do more on their lot. That's why they picked 2. And, right, Jim?
Yeah, they didn't want to increase it too much. They wanted to increase it, and they went to 2 across the board. About the same time that we were discussing this, there was a case that was brewing that went to the ZBA on a fellow who had another accessory structure, and if he had had 1 more square foot of lot size, he would have had 300 more.
Yeah, we recall that.
Square
We-
feet,
we-
yeah.
Yeah, we discussed that at.
So, yeah, it came, yeah, you probably remember this. So that was, I think, on their mind, and they just wanted like 1 instead of a sliding. That's how they came up with it.
Yeah, they just didn't want to do the sliding. They just
Yeah,
picked
I mean,
2, thinking that everybody would benefit and it would be easy to, to enforce. But could you say again what you were proposing?
I'll say again, and I just did the math. Greater than 4 acres, 2%. Between 2 acre, so to make it legal, it would be less than 4 acres, more than 2 acres. So, greater than 2, less than 4, 2.5%. And then 2 acres or less, 3%. And to your question, Trustee Muncy, currently on the small lot, you're at 500, so that would bump you up to 870. So that's not quite double. And
But
then,
that would get
close
you
to 900.
close to what you have now,
Yeah, exactly.
900.
Which is cool.
Yeah.
oh, yeah, correct, I'm sorry, wrong table. So that would be essentially the same. And then on the in-between lots, it's variable because you're at, right now it says 2 to 5 is set at 18. So you would be on both, because then that would drop you up to 1305. So on the higher end, you'd be hurt, but on the lower end, in the lower end, you'd be hurt, the higher end, you'd be benefited. And then the split on the one right now is 5 acres. So I'm proposing 4 though, so it's hard to compare those, but 5 acres and over still be 2880.
Go ahead, Janet.
I like the proposal because it works around a small arithmetic error that came out of the zoning commission. Again, in a continued well-intentioned attempt to give everybody a little bit more, most people got a little bit more, but if you were an R2, or excuse me, an RE2, you didn't get more. So by adding that extra 0.5% for the RE2s, it fulfills the function of giving them also a little bit more, and by keeping the RE1s at 2%, I think we don't have a runaway train.
Does everybody agree? Consensus? Yes, 2, 3? Oh, unanimous, good. Well, how about that? All right.
Now we're at the point, did we miss anything that hasn't been brought up by any member of the board?
Wasn't there
I have
some
one item.
discussment? Oh, sorry. You're going to do it the right way. I did it wrong. You do it.
Go ahead.
It was brought up by at least one of the commenters tonight. Other people have talked to me about it, and I told them, there's so many things that we're talking about. This is a small thing, and we'll get to it later. But we managed to get consensus on some other small things. We don't allow electric fences, and there are there was discussion about the setback of livestock fences and so forth. We have a number of responsible property owners in the village today that are using electric fences. And to the point that was made by one of the commenters, these are not high voltage devices. You're not going to get electrocuted. You're going to know you touched it, you know, and they should be marked, you know, clearly, you know, but otherwise, I think an electric fence solves more problems than it causes.
Go ahead, Tom.
What was the point of the electric fence thing? I mean, is it literally like they're worried that someone's going to put a fence that shocks people? I mean, there is.
Well, let me give
yeah.
you an example.
Yeah.
In my property, I don't fight with a neighbor over it or anything, but we have spruces and pines and so forth adjoining a horse farm, and the horses eat the branches. So I could say, you know, I really think you should have a separate fence, that 5-foot fence that you love so much, right? To keep the horses from doing that. The owner could also put a hot wire on the top of that fence, and the horses are not going to do it.
Any
It
other
doesn't
comments?
pose a health risk to, you know, the child that grabs it. Because I grew up in farm areas. We used to have contests who could hold on to it the longest.
Well, that explains it.
I know this
Tom.
might be a stupid question, though, too. So if someone, let's say someone out there in the rural areas decided, hey, I want to put up a hot fence to keep people out just for the sole purpose of zapping people because it's a burglar thing. No, I'm just asking, is there a thing we have to differentiate from that? Okay,
phone.
just
Yeah,
one.
go ahead,
No, I mean,
Ryan.
you could leap that thing fast. It's, I mean, Mark's right. You can,
No.
so you could jump over.
What if somebody out there decided to say, hey, I want to create a little.
Put your mic on. Yeah.
What if somebody, I'm just throwing it out there, I get the whole, the animal thing, but let's say somebody just was nuts and they're like, hey, I want to create a little bunker here and I want to put up an electric fence that actually shocks people. You know, is that something that's possible? Are we opening the door
Well, that's
for
a weapon,
that?
then, isn't it?
Isn't it? I guess it is, but I'm just asking, that's all.
If they come in and get the right permit, we'll have to stop it, you know?
I'm
But
just
if they
asking,
do it
that's all.
without a
I'm just
permit,
asking.
then
Yeah.
it could be
Well,
an issue.
I don't want to leave the
President
door open for that.
Winnicky.
Yeah.
President Winnicky.
Yes, go
Hey,
ahead, I'm
so
sorry.
just to comment on that, obviously, yes, it is, you could just wire it to your 240 or your 110 and have at it. Physically, technically, it's possible. It is illegal to do that sort of thing. I think the village attorney would concur that actually can get you in a lot of hot water, especially if somebody gets injured or killed. But if there needed to be, I like the first language that was mentioned about signage or warning or something, they're saying this is an electric fence. And that's pretty, you almost get those in the package when you buy it.
And to Trustee Williams's concern, you could say the electric fence is allowed for animal husbandry only.
Thank you, yeah. Some term for,
And that would-
commonly used animal
Animal
electric fences or
husbandry,
whatever.
because
Yeah.
they only sell the safe. Yep. So we could do, Jim Brown, add electric fences are allowed for animal husbandry.
Good, thank you. All right.
Do we have any other issues, or can we bring this forth for passage December 3rd?
Was there any more on fencing you wanted to, I mean, I don't want to talk about it anymore. I'm just asking.
I had
Was there
a
fencing thing
I had
that
a
people were
question
talking-
previously on fencing, but Jim Brown answered it. I have no further questions on fencing.
Oh,
Yes,
good,
and
good.
I think cannabis was discussed without Mike being here, but we did state post-meeting that professionally, we do not recommend you add cannabis use in any of your zoning commercial districts, because that is the topic that's usually done as a special one-off kind of amendment. So that's why we didn't include medical or recreational cannabis to be allowed in the use table, because you did a public hearing where we didn't discuss it at all. So that's why we didn't add that in to the use table.
I have
Go
a question about
ahead,
that, though. I
Jim.
think Trustee McCovey did.
Jim is first.
Yeah, and I think I think I mentioned at the last meeting that my recollection was that there was a referendum on that. And Michael, or Trustee Millette, concurred that there was indeed a referendum, and it was not, it was shot down.
Sure.
Yeah, so right now, that's why we, we didn't add it in the use table, folks. Is there a concurrence to not add it?
Concurrence to not add
At this time.
cannabis to our,
We did, but upon further review, it's tricky because we never discussed cannabis one time, and we certainly didn't do it at the public hearing. So if we added it, you'd be accused of not being transparent.
May I ask a question?
yeah, go
I
ahead.
think I already asked a question.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
All right, I wanted to. This is a question probably for the village attorney. If we did want to put a referendum out again in the next, April or whatever it is, 2025, is there still time to do that? If some trustees were interested in polling the
I think
populace
you're
again?
getting really close for February. It's like 3 or 4 days left. You're 92 days prior to February 25th? Yeah, which is about 4 or 5 days from now. would
Does
be
the
92
question
days.
have to be, just like our election, does it have to be posted for the primary to get on the consolidated election for April, or?
That's a good question. I can find out. Either way, you would have to, I mean, you don't have a board, you have to have an ordinance. A resolution or an action item to approve the question to go on the ballot. So if we only have a few days left and it has to be on February, you're not gonna have it by your next
But-
meeting. If it doesn't have to be on February and it can be in April, then you would be fine. You'd have some time.
But irrespective, you could do a text amendment in 6 months or 3 months from now.
That was-
And just do cannabis
That was
as
where
a
my,
discussion.
that was where
Right.
my question
You
was
don't
going.
have to do it by referendum, that's
Right.
not a requirement, it's just a practice you've done.
And if you did do a text amendment, you'd have a hearing before the ZBA and then before the village board, so.
Would you, so that gets to the heart of my question, if I may.
Go ahead.
So, to do a text amendment for, let's say the only thing that we wanted to do a text amendment for next year was cannabis, then that would require that it go before the ZBA?
Any changes to the zoning ordinance
And
would
so,
be
so
a
any
text
text amendment would
Right.
go before the ZBA?
Right. And the village would be the petitioner on that one. Any
Okay.
text amendment that the village is initiating, right,
Okay.
text or map amendment.
All right, I'd say.
So,
Mike, go ahead.
so just,
Yeah.
I
I'm sorry.
I want to make sure
Mhm.
I take in that entire statement. So, so it's, so for people who say, well, if you didn't get something right this time, you can just fix it, in 6 months from now, not quite so easy, because there's multiple steps to that. It's not just a matter of 4 votes on the board.
Sure, no, I mean, it would be a public hearing before the ZBA, and then it would come back for your final approval based on their recommendation.
With a
So-
recommendation which we can accept or reject.
Right, the only way to do a full change to the code or an adoption of a new version without
No, just an
the
amendment.
ZBA would be through zoning commission, like we just did now. But yes, if you're just changing a few words, it has to go to a text amendment.
Mike, go ahead.
Say, if,
Unless it's an error, like a Scrivener's error or something.
okay. If we have time to get it as a advisory, I'm okay with that, if we want to have some,
Clearly we don't.
no,
Yeah.
if it doesn't challenge to the April, if it
Right,
doesn't have
so
to be
the
on.
issue is that if there
So
is
find out
no-
when the filing date is for it.
Yeah, the issue is that if there is no primary, because the village doesn't need one, then everyone who files, or who has filed, or any of the write-ins, for February are automatically put on April, which leads me to believe that it would be for the February deadline. Yeah,
Yeah.
but we will check, for sure.
Yeah, Barb, or
Go ahead, Jim.
Madam President,
Mhm.
sorry.
That's right.
Yeah, just one,
Yeah.
yeah, I would support that. I think the fact that we did it once before, right, Mike?
But you didn't.
Oh,
You didn't, I'm sure you didn't.
okay, well, the point is, we had a lot of pitch. Oh,
No,
no,
you
it was
didn't
not
have any
binding. Oh,
referendum
no, no,
on
it was not binding.
cannabis.
It was not a binding. It was not
You had a
binding.
referendum on
guys
gaming,
did.
not cannabis.
But even if we,
Yeah.
okay, I thought, I thought trustee Millet, endorsed, well, that's what I said, maybe I was wrong, I admitted that. But to that point, though, it was clearly pitchforks and knives were drawn upon. I'm exaggerating, of course, but there was a lot of opposition regardless. And it was a unanimous vote not not to support it.
Yeah.
The board was a unanimous vote. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Mike.
I mean, to the point, I don't think it's unlike video gaming. At that point, when we weren't entirely sure what it was about. It's always easier to say no. And then we had different feedback. I mean, dispensary, every town, lots of towns around, mine's got one coming in. I mean, it may not be the scary thing we're thinking of. We talked about having it only in a commercial use, potentially something like that. So I think it's okay if we have the time, test the waters again and see what the public opinion is now.
Yeah, I'm gonna. I think we're done. And, let's see, we have number 8 was a KDOT update. We can do that December 3rd, because the hour is getting late now. And the closed session too, we'll do that December 3rd at our next meeting. Okay, so motion to,
I think we didn't do an official motion to move the zoning 2024 ordinance as
So moved.
amended
Move the
to action.
to our next meeting, okay.
So moved.
Second, okay, yeah, roll call, let's do roll call.
Who made the motion?
Janet, and then Ed.
Trustee Burson?
Aye.
Trustee Muncy?
Aye.
Trustee Boatner?
Aye.
Trustee McAlvey?
Aye.
Trustee Millet?
Aye.
Trustee Williams?
Aye.
Okay, motion to adjourn?
I so move.
Okay,
Second.
Jim, second by Janet, all in favor say aye. Wow, you lasted this.